Black Lives Matter DC. We are a chapter of the Black Lives Matter network. Black Lives Matter DC is committed to working with those Black people in DC and Prince George's County who are most likely to be impacted by police violence. So, a lot of the work that we do is centered around one phrase that I'm sure you'll see everywhere on our shirts and everywhere else, and that's "we keep us safe." We do that both through teaching the community about their rights, through Cop Watch, Court Watch, and we also spend some of our time in the community. Let me put it this way. We spend a whole lot of time right now in our community addressing and really working on and through the violence, community violence. We see them as intertwined, and we see them as it's just a circle that goes around and around, and is continually perpetuated by white supremacy, by anti-Blackness, oppression, repression. And so a lot of the work we do has to do with rapid response. We go to scenes, we work with families. We do trainings, and actually COVID has given us an opportunity to change the way that we do training, which has been really exciting. It's also presented challenges for new things that we're trying. And thank you very much, everyone, for being here. We see a lot of changes here in DC over these last few months, not just the pandemic, but as we watch nationally and locally, Black Lives Matter, quote unquote, resurgence, I say resurgence because it actually never went away. We're still in these streets every day. But once again, society is starting to talk about it again collectively. And not just talk about it, but also taking on the rebellion against the continuation of state violence. In this uprising, continuing even when the cameras are gone, people in DC still protest every single day. They're just not covered on the news. But most importantly here tonight, like the reason we actually did this. One, we love y'all, we've been wanting to do this for a really long time. But two, is that when national groups come to DC, the names of loved ones who have lost their lives by state violence, by and through state violence, are not uplifted. We spent the better part of 2 months walking through these massive protests downtown, screaming the names of those who were killed in DC, Maryland, and Virginia, to the point that we literally got hoarse. We took, where's Nene at? We took bullhorns from people and made crowds say their name. When we wrote "Defund the Police" on Muriel's mural, we also put the names of loved ones near that mural, and when we were able to tell people not to walk on the names, they learned the names. We sent them. We put them on social media. And sometimes we have to check some of these organizations. Amen. And it's important, as part of the way that we keep each other safe, is that safety also means from the violence of erasure. And it's very, very important to understand that this is purposeful in DC. That there is a way in which the police, the state, even folks who live here have become immune almost to the state violence in DC. And we're here to change that and make these loved ones just as known, as revered, as honored as all of them, right? We didn't say Black Lives Matter with clauses. We said Black Lives Matter, period. We said the state kills Black people, not some Black people who are worth mentioning. And the other thing is we we've gotten to know a lot of you very, very, very closely. Which means we've also seen a lot of your struggles to ensure that your loved ones are not forgotten. And so one of our things is our duty. It is our duty as part of being Black Lives Matter, as part of being Black people, to protect folks from having to always repeat and yell and scream and remember things that we can do for you to support you. And hopefully the folks that we're just meeting, we will continue. This is not a transactional relationship, which is also something that happens with national groups and people who come into DC. It's very transactional. We want to build a community of folks here in DC. This is not a one-time, we really, really believe that hopefully you all will meet new people tonight too and connect. But we also want to do the same with you. And so we have a great night. I also want to say thank you so much for watching us and talking to us in love as we got started a little bit late. We wanted to make sure all the pieces came together, all the people were able to be here. And again, we really want to thank everybody for coming. Oh, okay. Just kidding. So I'm also really excited to allow these. I'd like y'all to meet them. The other tribe members of Black Lives Matter DC, and we are all here tonight. The entire tribe is here tonight. Every single one of us during COVID, which is a lot.
Hold on,
Nene, Kiana, please come introduce yourself.
Is my mic on? Testing. Okay, I'll talk
This
in
one.
Hey everyone, how y'all doing? So happy and honored to be here. My name is Kiana. I'm a co-organizer with Black Lives Matter DC, and I'm so happy to be here with y'all. Lorenzo.
Hello everybody. My name is Anthony Lorenzo Green, proud member of Black Lives Matter DC tribe. And you also know that I'm an ANC commissioner in the Deanwood Community in Ward 7, so I'm happy to be in this space with you, a fellowship to share love and to uplift the names of your loved ones and your entire family. Thank you.
Good evening, beautiful, beautiful Black people. I am so honored to be in this space tonight. I am so honored to be in the presence of loved ones, of community members who have lost loved ones. We are here to honor you tonight. And I know some of y'all are in the back, but if you can, come a little bit closer because tonight is about you. We want to center your voice. We want to center your stories. So if you can, come up and maintain 6 feet apart.
Thank you.
We would greatly appreciate it. As Lorenzo mentioned, my name is Mary Beth. I'm a core organizer with Black Lives Matter DC. I've been at DC my whole life. I am truly honored to be in this space. Thank you to the vision of April Goggins and Mimi Taylor for holding this down. We must remember the community that we have here in DC. We're not just a pit stop for people to do their tourism, their activism. Thank you. But we are a community. We have a strong, vibrant community here in DC, and that needs to be honored and celebrated. So thank you.
One.
Hey family, my name is Kiki. My name is Makia, but people who love me call me Kiki. I'm a co-organizer with Black Lives Matter DC, and I'm just really grateful to be here with you, that you thought to share space with us. I really echo what all of my other co-organizers have said. You all keep us grounded. When the cameras leave, when the lights turn off, when the hashtag is not trending anymore, it is our bond and our relationship that really keeps us moving going, and why Black Lives Matter has a resurgence today from starting 5 years ago. And so I'm just so grateful that you all were willing to be brave with us, to go up against the media, to go up against all of the naysayers for years and years. And I know that that is difficult, so grateful so much. Love you all. Okay, I'd like to call our other co-organizer. Oh, I just want to let you know that Ajake, another co-organizer who's been doing a lot of behind-the-scenes work and can't come up to the mic, but is also a part of our family. Just want to give up to Ajake.
Yeah, you guys will see her, Jockey. She literally went to go pay the meter because DC gave me tickets. So she's going around there in a cute little dress. You guys will see because she's really attentive to the people. My name is Nene Teller, and I'm also a co-organizer with Black Lives Matter DC. And
Take your time. Take your time, sis.
yo, I'm just so honored to be here with all of y'all. And to honor y'all and be in your presence and hold space and up with your loved ones. Because majority of the ones that are here, I did my best to fight for justice for your child. But the work don't ever stop. And just know that your loved one name is gonna forever live. They're gonna be forever with us, and they're gonna be forever uplifted. We have the y'all gotta forgive me. Yo, this is like a drunk spirit, and I can't explain it. And I'm trying to get through it. Because sometimes your spirit leave and ancestors really come. And this is the presence that I'm in right now, and it's overwhelming. So I'm trying to hold this space and let Nene shine, but no, this ain't for me to shine. So what I'm gonna do right now is we are honored to have Ayanna Gregory here to hold space with us, right? She's a songwriter, a healer, an activist, but she also the daughter of our powerful civil rights activist, comedian, Dick Gregory. So we even have Dick Gregory spirit in the place tonight too. So without further ado, I'm gonna introduce Ayanna Gregory.
Thank you. When I say I go, please say I may, I go.
Amen.
I go.
Amen.
I go.
Amen.
What I would like to do is ask all of the families of the beloved ancestors who we are honoring today. I would like for you to begin to gather. I'm going to point in the direction. If you could form somewhat of a line. The reason I'm asking that is I want us to feel this flow and the connectivity, the alignedness, that we are all connected. And so as opposed to everybody walking up from different directions, if everybody could gather from starting about right here and have your candle with you. And I'd like to share a song by one of our beautiful musicians, India Ari, as she speaks to the truth of who we really are beyond our bodies, that we are in fact pure light. And so as I play this song and as the families gather with their candles and we light the candles to put on the altar, we know that as we light these candles, that our ancestors can feel it and know that they are in fact being honored and being illuminated and being lit up in this moment. If everyone can be in silence, if you'd like to close your eyes or just be very still as we honor these beautiful, precious souls. I'm going to have you say their name after you put the candle on the altar.
Corinne Gaines. Amia Brooks. Gary Hopkins Jr. Jamal Bird.
Can I have you light them before me?
Oh, yeah, got you.
The lighter? Sure. Did you say the name?
Cabin L. Cooper. Raphael Briscoe.
Name.
Alonzo Smith.
prayer and libation to honor these beautiful spirits who are now soaring. I'll go.
Amen.
I'll go.
Amen.
Mother, Father, God, ancestors, spirit guides, guardian angels, all forces of love and light, divine spirit, we call on you right here and right now, in this space, in this room. We ask that you come to us and through us right here and right now. Right here and right now. As we say the names of our beloved family members and ancestors, as we say the names of those who are no longer here in body form, but whose spirits live forever, Ashe? Whose spirits live forever, Ashe? And so we pour the water. We pour the water as libation, and in the African tradition, the water is poured back into the earth to celebrate this continuum of life. We know that these bodies are just vessels holding the spirit. Ashe? Ashe. We know that. And so we know that as we honor the earth, we so honor this continuum of life because we understand that some of our ancestors have already come back in the children. Ashe? Because they are never dead, they are never gone. That in the African tradition, we celebrate the continuum of life. Ashe? Ashe. And so we recognize those first black mothers. I want to say it again, those first black mothers, the mothers of creation, who lived hundreds of thousands of years ago, who made it possible for us to be here today standing in civilization. Ashe? Ashe. We give thanks for those great Africans who paved the way for all of humanity, the great thinkers, the architects, the engineers, the builders, the visionaries, the conceivers, the healers, the magic makers, the warriors. Ashe? Ashe. We give thanks for all of the great historians, the great spiritual guides, the high priests, the kings, the queens, the builders. Ashe? Ashe. We give thanks for the keepers of the culture, the historians, the griots, the storytellers that made sure that our history would be protected and preserved, even if it was only through our DNA. Ashe? Ashe. We give thanks for those great Africans who were not slaves, those great Africans who were enslaved and ripped from the motherland of West Africa and even North Africa and even South and East Africa. Ashe? Ashe. We give thanks and we pay tribute to those ancestors who survived the horrific African Holocaust and the transatlantic African slave trade. Ashe? Ashe. We pay homage to those who survived the journey and those who did not. Ashe? Ashe. We give thanks for those great Africans who kept the culture even when they had to hide it because they knew that their African greatness would be preserved by hook or by crook, some kind of way, by any means necessary. Ashe? Ashe. We give thanks for those great Africans in America who taught and educated even though they knew it might cost them their life. Ashe? Ashe. We give thanks for those great ancestors and those great leaders, and right now we're going to call out some of the names. We're going to call out Brother Imhotep, Father of Medicine. Ashe? Ashe. Queen Nzinga. Ashe? Ashe. Queen Tai. Ashe? Ashe. Shaka Zulu. Ashe? Ashe. Joseph Sinke. Ashe? Ashe. Toussaint Louverture. Ashe? Ashe. Nat Turner. Ashe? Ashe. Harriet Tubman. Ashe? Ashe. Sojourner Truth. Ashe? Ashe. Fannie Lou Hamer. Ashe? Ashe. Mary McLeod Bethune. Ashe? Ashe. My father Baba Dick Gregory. Ashe? Ashe. Dr. Martin Luther King. Ashe? Ashe. Medgar Evers. Ashe? Ashe. Reverend Dr. C.T. Vivian. Ashe? Ashe. John Lewis, Congressman John Lewis. Ashe? Ashe. Huey P. Newton. Ashe? Ashe. Stokely Carmichael, Kwame Ture. Ashe? Ashe. We say the names: Maya Angelou. Ashe? Ashe. Toni Morrison. Ashe? Ashe. Bob Marley. Ashe? Ashe. El Haj Malik, El Shabazz, Malcolm X. Ashe? Ashe. We say the names. I want you to call out the names. Call out the names of our esteemed ancestors. Call out their names.
Doris Gibbons, Jeanette.
Ashe?
Jeanette Gibbons.
Ashe?
Ashe. Ashe.
Ashe.
Ashe.
Ashe.
Ashe.
Call the names.
Frederick Phillips.
Call the
Brian
names.
Phillips, Ronald Lance Gibbons.
Call on the names so that they can come here and right now. Marcus Garvey. Ashe. Ashe. I want you to say these names with me as we honor those in our space, in our own community. I want you to say Archie Elliott III. India Kager. Corinne Gaines. Gary Hopkins Jr. Kevin Cooper. Raphael Briscoe. Miriam Carey. Amir Brooks. Alonzo Smith. Terrence Sterling. Jeffrey Price. Daquan Young. Marquise Alston. Jamal Bird. Trey Joyner. Alonzo Smith. Prince Jones. William Green Jr. Robbie White. Finan Burke. Eton Tanzimore. Gregory Marcus Gray. Christopher Brown. Joseph Cooper. Gerald Javon Hall. You are the light. You are our light. We hold you. You hold us. We celebrate you. We say your name. We say your name. You live in us. You live in us. Eternal life. Eternal life. Your purpose. Your light. Your intention. What God has created, no man can destroy. What God has created, no man can destroy. You are here. We call on our grandmothers, our great-grandmothers, our great-great-grandmothers. We call on our grandfathers, our great-grandfathers, our great-great-grandfathers. We ask them to come here in this space to guide us, to protect us. They are waiting for us to honor them, to ask for their assistance. We are calling on you, ancestors. We know that we are moving in our light and we are moving in purpose. We know that you got the ancestors. We know that you are now our guardian angels, our spirit guides, and that you are flying high with the divine. Everybody say, we are the light. We are the light. We are the light. We are the light. Say their names. They are the light. It is already done. It is already done. It is already done. As we sit here and stand here in the middle of the best of times and the worst of times, I say that, y'all, we right on time. Yes. That we was built for this. Yes. That we was built for this moment. Yes. And that we are still here. Yes. Sometimes we ask, why am I still here? And they're going, we're still here because there's still work to do. Yes. Yes. And they need you. Yes. They need you on this side doing the work, the healing work from the inside out. Yes. Because how they left this planet is not where they are now. Yes. I need you to understand that, and I'm going to say it again. How they left here is not where they are now. Because racist white supremacy cannot take your spirit. That's God business. That's God business. I say that's God business. And so I need you to understand there's a higher plan. Why your loved one had to be the one. We don't understand on the human level. We leave that for the God business. But we understand that there are no mistakes. And that there's something powerful about the ones and ones are here honoring their ancestors, and we know we have work to do. We know that we are sounding the alarm. See, they took the drum, but they didn't understand the drum lives in me. The drum lives in you. Mama Africa is here. The tornadoes and the hurricanes, they coming, and they are following the path of the slave trade. And we understand that it is now time. It is now time for our light. It is now time for our light to reign supreme. And what we need to understand lastly is when we show up in the formation of the God work, everything else has to go. Daddy said fear and God don't occupy the same space. Daddy said in order to turn on the light,
In order to make darkness go away, you got to show up with your light. And so sometimes it's just showing up. It's just showing up as you are in your life and not dumbing down to make this racist white supremacy feel comfortable. Why should they feel so fragile that the mere sight of us make them want to put a bullet in our back? Who must we be? Who must you be? African woman, powerful, regal woman. Who must you be, black man? That the mere sight of you makes them so afraid of the dismantling of a system that never honored humanity. See, this is really not about color. Racist white supremacy created race. It ain't real. And we as African people always understood that. When you go to Africa, they don't talk about color. Because we understood that everybody come from Africa. Ashe? That everybody's ancestors is African. Ashe? And so we understand that it is time to respect and protect the black woman. It is time to respect and protect the black man and the black child. And that it is our responsibility. And it is time. And lastly, I'm going to say this as I close. No more living small, no more giving just a little. No more being shy, no more staying in the middle. We're about to take flight, so you better hold on. Flying through the night, put your night vision on. With the eye of the eagle, the heart of a lion, the wings of an angel to keep me flying. Light as a feather, cause a smile every day. The love in my heart, I give it away. Places we will go, hey, things that we will see. Heaven only knows all that we will be. See the magic that you have. If you only knew who you really are, the things that you could do. Everybody say, hey, star people. Hey, star people. 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 Na 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 na. 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 And before you take your seat, I want you to put one hand towards the heavens. Everybody say love. Love. Light. Light. And I want you to say the name of your loved one on the count of 3. 1, 2, 3. Yeah. We see you, baby. Yeah. We feel you. Yeah. We got you. Yeah. And we know what to do. Yeah. Mother, Father, God, full protection. Every breath we take, we are the ones that we have been waiting for. Amen. Amen. And Ashe. Ashe. Thank you so much.
I'm next on the mic. I am. Oh, that was good. That was beautiful. Yes. Me. Sorry. You can wrap it up. Okay, y'all. Amen. Amen. Yes. Coming down off this natural high that we just were able to have. So the next voice, I'll wait. Okay, y'all, so we're gonna go ahead and continue on with the program, and the next voice that you will be hearing is the voice, a most famous voice, a DMG's voice. She will say to you that she is the love liaison and that she is the community cousin. But I am here to tell you that this woman, this wonderful voice that you will hear next is more than just a voice, right? She is actually deeply rooted in our community. She's at each and every event. She is sharing things. She is giving of herself. She is God's testimony to our community. And so you will also hear this voice every morning from 6 o'clock a.m. until 10 o'clock a.m. with Joe Claire on WPGC 95.5. Help me to welcome Poet! Good evening, everyone. How are you? I don't think that's good for what we said. Y'all that just did in this room. Good evening, everyone. How are you? Oh, okay. I just want to get right into this. Thank you, Kiana, for that introduction. I want to thank you for allowing me to share in this moment of love, of fellowship, remembrance, and honor. I am a believer that when you share your stories, you change the world. I got in the media because every time I watched the news, what I saw did not reflect the black mothers that I knew, the black fathers that I knew, the black families that I saw, the things that we did, the things that we learned, the way that we loved. And my mother said, if you don't like it, do something about it. People who listen to Joe and I know that every morning it is all about being unapologetically black and celebrating this melanin that for whatever reasons, God dipped me in. I heard that there's a 1 in 1.4 trillionth of a chance that you would even be born. 1.4 trillion of a chance. So for those who are here physically, for those we will honor tonight, it is not by chance nor by accident that you were created. Tonight I want you to take in every story. As a person in the news, you learn very quickly that when things are headlines, all the good stuff is missing. About how they could make a cake from scratch, how their life through a loud room, how I watched them take the shirt off their back, that they went through X, Y, and Z, and this is where they ended up. Tonight, you're gonna hear the real stories. The stories that bring the tears, that bring the laughter, and through it all, bring love. So with that, I would like to bring the families of Archie Elliott, Gary Hopkins Jr., and Kevin Cooper to the stage. Thank you. You can sit next to me.
I will.
Where's the rest of you? Oh, because the food is out. I'm watching all of y'all. Take your time. Take your time.
Is Dorothy coming?
I'm not sure. Miss Dorothy, will you be joining us?
I told her that she could come on. She's coming past us.
While we wait for Miss Dorothy to make her way, I will pass the mic to you. Please introduce yourself. And tell us the story of your beautiful loved one.
Yes, hi. My name is Marion Gray Hopkins, and I'm the mother of Gary Hopkins Jr., who was murdered by police on November 27, 1999. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Gary was murdered on November 27, 1999 in Prince George's County, Maryland, by 2 police officers were involved. One was the shooter, Officer Brian Catlett, and one initiated the event that night. And I want to talk a little bit about Gary and humanize Gary because we know when the killing occurs, they try to dehumanize our loved one. So first up, before we talk about that one night, Gary had 19 years of life. Gary was my youngest of 4 beautiful children. Gary was a baby. Gary was very fun-loving. Gary was a mentor to his peer group. Gary was a jokester. Gary was the comedian of the family. He was the actor and the performer of the family. Coming up, Gary used to really speak and talk well beyond his years. And some nights he used to actually scare me because he would talk about, things that were, again, well beyond his years. And I would say, don't start it tonight. We called him LG for little Gary. And I would tell him, don't start it tonight, but he was like, yeah, Ma, I remember that in my last life. And so, we would have some really deep conversations. And through school, Gary did extremely well in school. Again, he loved to write. his handwriting was absolutely terrible, but as long as he could understand it, and the teachers could understand it, but his mother couldn't. And Gary loves snickerdoodle cookies, so I had my girlfriend who used to make him these snickerdoodle cookies, and he would eat them all, but tell her it was a bad batch, so that she could make more. And he loved what he called goulash. It was really beefaroni. And he would take Doritos and crunch the Doritos up inside of it, make it look real, real nasty, and then stick his finger around in it, right? And so he was always, doing things like that and annoying his brothers and sisters, because that's just what he did. And as he grew up, he became a protector of his sisters. Again, he was the youngest, but you would think he was older because his friends used to love his sisters, and he demanded that they would not mess with his sisters. And even in his death, his friends were afraid to say anything to his sisters because he laid down the law. And Gary used to perform. He was an aspiring rapper, and used to be called out from different talent scouts in the area, and he would perform. And we used to have like our little house parties, and we would always be excited because we want to know who he was going to mimic on that particular night. And he would do the Shabba Ranks and the James Brown, and dress up with the clothes and all of that. So that's a little bit. Oh, and what he loved Tyra Banks, and his room was depicted. All of the walls were filled with Tyra Banks, who was going to be his future wife. Let him tell it. And so just an all-around great, great kid. At the time of his death, Gary was a full-time college student. He was majoring in mass communications with a business minor, and he had his mind set on potentially becoming a journalist or something with writing. And I mentioned that Gary was a mentor to his peer group. When he was younger, he would always bring in people or kids that you had experienced problems. So you would think that Gary was also a problem child, but that was his way of bringing them in. And his father used to, mentor to these, I would call it wayward, that's not a good word, but anyway, that were challenged. They had children, boys that he hung around that were really having problems. But again, we lived in, a middle-class neighborhood, and both parents in the household, and Gary was just, again, a really, really great kid. In high school, all of his teachers used to send me notes, and oh, he's the class clown, but he gets his work done. He's just an all-around great, great kid. So the particular night when Gary was killed, not the night, let me step back a little bit. The morning that Gary was killed, the day before, he came into my bedroom because just 16 days earlier, we lost his father, my husband, 16 days earlier, to a 1-month short stint with metastatic terminal bone cancer. And Gary came into my room that morning, and he said to me, he says, Mom, he said, I'm having a very difficult time with my dad's death. He said, you just don't understand. He was more than just my dad. He was my best friend. And he tells me he's working a part-time job in addition to a full-time student. And he said, my supervisor at a local nursing home where he worked is giving a dance at the local fire station. And he says, I'm going to go. And he said, you should too. Of course, I declined the offer. He said, I know that you're going through your mourning process as well. And he says, well, I'm going to get some of my friends to go to this dance. I'm going to get some of my cousins to go to the dance. And so, and he said, yeah, Dad got some brand new lizard shoes downstairs. And he says, I'm going to wear Dad's lizard shoes and his slacks tonight. I just need your car to get a shirt. And so that night, he and his friends gathered. There were 2 or 3 carloads. I can't remember. I think it was at least 2 carloads of them. And they went to the dance. So at that dance, one of Gary's friends got into a verbal altercation. But again, the police generally gets the first narrative out there. The true story is Gary went to this dance. One of his friends got into a verbal altercation with another gentleman at the party over a girl. Gary broke up that altercation, and it was about 2 in the morning, and they were getting ready to leave the dance. And Gary, as I told you, he was a jokester. He's always, goofing off. He's a passenger in the back seat of the car. But he gets his friend to roll the window down, and he sits on the outside window sill of the car. And he's sitting there making sure everybody is where he told them, to be, because, he's going to be large and in charge. So he wanted to make certain that they were still in the position that they were supposed to be. As he's sitting on the outside windowsill, Officer Devin White comes and blocks them from exiting the fire station. There were two exits, an exit on the left and an exit on the right. Gary's on the left side and was going to exit there. So the officer, Devin White, gets out of his patrol car with his gun already drawn. And it's cold. It's November 27th, very cold here, right? So he gets out of the patrol car and he comes up to Gary, who's sitting on the ledge, looking back towards to make sure everybody's in the cars behind him. And he puts that cold gun to Gary's head. And witnesses say Gary was trying to move this gun away from his head. And the officer pulls him off the car by the collar of his shirt and kind of pulls him around when the second officer comes and makes one fatal gunshot wound to Gary's chest. Gary's friends go to render aid. They take Gary from the arms of his girlfriend, who was applying pressure to the wound, and drags him to the side of the road, rendering no aid whatsoever. I get a phone call that Gary has been shot, and I'm thinking, there's no way. I just lost my husband 16 days earlier. This can't be true. No. They said, come to the fire station. It seemed like a forever ride. And I get to the fire station, and I'll make the story a little bit shorter. But we get to the fire station, and again, the police officers are very nasty. Ma'am, you can't come across the tape. They had already had it all taped off very, very quickly. Long story short, we went through a trial. One of the officers was indicted, of course, not for first-degree murder, but for manslaughter, reckless endangerment or something. He went through a judge trial. The judge slept through most of the trial. It was a circus, and we knew going into it, after a couple of days, there was no way we were going to win this case. Although myself, I believed in the justice system. I believed that this person was going to get justice for killing my child. He was acquitted on all charges and promoted later for a good kill. The second officer that precipitated the event was not charged. He lied under oath. There was lies between his deposition and his testimony. Nothing ever happened. They didn't go back. And I didn't know any better at that time. I didn't know to go ahead and push to ensure that justice was served in that case, although I don't think it was. We're here 21 years later, and we see very rarely does law enforcement ever get indicted and then convicted of a crime. And so from Gary's death, it catapulted me into becoming an activist, because I felt very strongly that my son's death would not be in vain, and that if there was an opportunity for me to save another life, then that's exactly what I was going to do. And so my work continues, and I co-founded with Deshola Dawkins, the Coalition of Concerned Mothers, which is a group of mothers, unfortunately comprised of mothers that have lost their children to either community violence or police brutality. So thank you for listening.
Thank you for sharing.
How many bullets does it take to kill someone? Sometimes it's 1, sometimes it's 4, sometimes it's 14, sometimes it's 8, sometimes it's 22, and it really takes only 1, but 1 is totally unnecessary in many, many cases. I'm representing Archie Elliott III. I've been at this for 27 years, and my son has been deceased longer than he lived. He lived to be only 24, and how many of you have heard of the name Archie Elliott III? Even though it happened 27 years ago, I'll briefly tell you the story. He had worked on a construction job that day in Virginia, had driven home, had stopped to get some beer or whatever the white collar or blue collar people do, and he was about 3 minutes away from home when this young white officer, about my son's age, stopped him because the car was weaving. That was the only offense that my son had against him on that day. And he complied with the officer. He was intoxicated. And he was wearing only shorts, no shirt, and tennis shoes. Tall, 6'1", weighing 165 pounds. He was searched before they placed him in that cruiser. No contraband was found. Nothing was found on him. They handcuffed him and subsequently put him in the front seat of District Heights, Maryland police cruiser. And while the two officers, Wayne Chaney was the black young officer who was backup. And Wayne Chaney also had a ride-along with him. And while they stood talking near the cruiser, they alleged that my son pointed a handgun at them. Keep in mind, his hands are still cuffed behind his back. He's intoxicated. He's sitting in a cruiser that had dark tinted windows. And I can't for the life of me figure out what they could see in that cruiser. You don't see that on police cars normally, but this was again a municipal police car. So they fired at him 22 times, and the cruiser had huge bullet holes in it. And you can imagine how my son's body looked. And when they opened the door, he fell on the ground. No one saw any weapon or anything. This is difficult sometimes. And we had a difficult time trying to figure out where our son was because we didn't ID him. And when we said we're coming to Baltimore to the medical examiner's office, they said, well, he's already been ID'd. We called back to Prince George's Hospital. They said he's not here. And we finally go to Prince George's Hospital, and the surgeon said, your son was shot numerous times. And it was only before my son was buried that I saw him. My sister and my nephew took pictures of his body, and those pictures were put on the internet. And what really brought people out to gather around us was seeing my son's body on the internet. And this was in 1999, 6 years after my son was killed, that we did a 22-day protest at the courthouse in Upper Marlboro. We had people like Reverend the Honorable Fauntleroy, and we had Dick Gregory to come out. Martin Luther King III came, and there's a picture of me leaning on Martin Luther King III's shoulder. As we marched around the building, they were chanting, how many bullets, how many bullets? And when it got to 14, I just lost it. I thought I was going to go crazy. I said, I better stop. That's what I'm telling myself, because they're going to put me in the crazy house. And I finally stopped, but that's where I landed on Martin Luther King's shoulder, and he was very comforting. We did this again for 22 consecutive Wednesdays. And at one point, I must mention that Joe Madison, the radio host, he's with Sirius XM now, he was the one who also was planning the strategy. And we met at Reverend Fauntleroy's church every Sunday to plan our strategy for that Wednesday. And we determined that at least 2 or 3 of us would get locked up every Wednesday. And when Joe Madison said, I'm going to stand in front of the courthouse door, and you all can come, whoever wants to join me. And I said, I can't let him go without my going over there. And the sheriff's deputies, when they took us inside and put that little plastic thing to handcuff us, they were trying to block my view from the media that was standing out there. They didn't want them to see me getting locked up. And I said, well, you know, you've done the worst you can do for me. And I sort of moved over to the side, and then the sheriff deputies would move, trying to block my view. But anyway, we went up to Jack Johnson's office. He was the state's attorney at the time. We wanted him to reopen the case, and of course he didn't. We had petitions, and he said, why should we bother to open the case unless you bring me new evidence, which we didn't have. And so right at this point, there is a petition for justice for Archie Elliott III, and we have more than 4,000 signatures on it, and we're hoping to get 5,000 by the time the state's attorney meet with us to say what the outcome is of this case. But of all the years, we've gone to at least 3 state's attorneys, and they said there are no records for my son. No records whatsoever. And I have some depositions, a lot of depositions from Judge Elliott, myself, and the attorneys, police officers who killed my son and those who came on the scene. And Judge Elliott and I went around to the neighborhood trying to get witnesses, because when my son was killed, that was the 18th of June, and it wasn't too long after that that the 4th of July came, and people thought those were firecrackers that they heard. And my son didn't come home that night before he went to work the next day, because he was planning my birthday, which was the next day. And can you imagine what it feels like every 19th of June? And it was just 3 days before Father's Day too, so you know there are a lot of dates in there, but thank God I'm still standing. I'm still standing. Thank you.
Greetings. As you can see, this is hard. This is a club that none of us mothers, fathers, sisters, brothers, we didn't ask for. We didn't sign up for. We were thrust into this space after the tragic loss of our loved one. My son, Kevin L. Cooper, at the tender age of 14, was shot and killed in my home in front of me by a Baltimore City police officer. It's been 14 years, and he only had 14 years of life. On August the 12th of 2006, while holding a plastic dustpan, according to the Baltimore City Police Department, the plastic dustpan was a weapon. That's what they call a weapon that's used against a trained man who is armed, who has different types of weapons, and also went to a police academy to shoot a 14-year-old in distress in his home with no shirt on, a pair of basketball shorts, when the other officer left the home to say that the call was abated, meaning that the call is over. So if the call is over, that means that you should leave and it's over and done. Any paperwork that needs to be filed could be filed at a later time and date, but the one officer chose to stay and have a conversation with a 14-year-old, escalating a situation that was already calm. The hard part for me is the mother's job is to protect their children. I was unable to protect my son against this officer and a system. But for the past 14 years, myself and my family, that we have been standing and making noise in the system, not only for our family, for justice for Kevin, but for other families across this nation as a whole. Just as George Floyd was being murdered, and he called out for his mother, that was a call for all mothers to stand up. Because some mothers can't get out the bed. Some mothers are truly in distress. Some mothers can't move or can't speak about what has happened. But that was a call for all of us mothers to come together to stand as one, to fight this injustice that's taking place in our cities, not only here, but across this nation as a whole. They're going to have to stop killing our children and covering it up, trying to sweep it under the rug. As they did with Kevin with holding the plastic dustpan, I say you will not sweep him under a rug. That rug that you're trying to sweep him under has become lumpy, it has become hard, and the dirt that's under there is piled high. It is time for us to bring our children's name to a forefront and fight a racist system that has been against us for a long time. We can do it as one if we stand together as one. Come together in love and in unity. Stand in solidarity and continue to fight. It was one shot. He shot Kevin through his arm, his shoulder, and it went in and bust his heart. One shot. You heard Dorothy said it took multiple shots. But for Kevin, it was one shot. They bust his heart, but they did not kill his spirit. And they will not kill his spirit. As long as God put breath in my body, I will continue to lift up the name of Kevin L. Cooper, who was shot on August the 12th by a rookie officer 1 year on a force. He was not taken off the force. He was shot 9:30 a.m. in the morning. By 2 o'clock that afternoon, they had already said it was a justifiable homicide. How could you justify a homicide that just occurred at 9:30 a.m. in the morning? I had no time to go to make a statement. Baltimore City police officers were allowed 10 days to write a narrative that they falsified to fit their scenario, to get away with murder. They offered our family $10,000, in which we refused. We went to court on the civil case. They paid over $250,000 to fight us in court to sustain and uphold a lie. But in the end, we will get justice. We will get justice. Because long as I have breath in my body and there's a God that's higher, a God that is greater, a God that is more powerful than any racist system that may walk this earth, that there will be justice for all of our families. So I say to the families, continue to stand. Continue to lift up your loved ones and tell your story. Don't let nobody try to tell your story, because when they tell your story, by the time it get from here to there, it's going to be all turned around. I thank you all for listening to us, standing with us. Continue to stand with the families as we stand together as one.
Thank you all so much for sharing your story. We see you, we hear you, we love you. And in those moments that you can't walk, know that we got you. There's nothing you can't ask of this village. I am so sorry that this is your experience. But I am with Ayana when I say I no longer question God. I just know that our pieces in this puzzle are different, but we are going to solve. I love you all. Thank you so much. At this time, we will now call the families of Miriam Carey, Amar Brooks, and Raphael Briscoe to share their stories.
And Troy Joyner, she has to speak.
And Troy Joyner. It's okay to clap. It's okay. Thank you, Auntie. Again, we welcome the families of Miriam Carey, Amir Brooks, Raphael Briscoe, and we had someone else join us. I'm sorry. Trey Joyner. Thank you. I wanted to make sure everybody knew here. Thank you. Thank you, ladies, for joining us. I'm just going to pass the mic. Please introduce yourselves, the loved one that you're representing, and share your story as you see fit.
Thank you. My name is Valerie Carey. I'm the sister of Miriam Carey, who was killed by U.S. Secret Service Police and Capitol Police here in Washington, D.C., October 3rd, 2013. My sister was a law-abiding citizen. She was a taxpayer. She was a mother. She was a daughter. She was a friend. My sister was not in the commission of a crime when she was shot at over 26 times, sustaining 5 shots to her back as she drove with her 13-month-old baby, my niece, in the back seat of her Infiniti. What my sister may have been guilty of, if you want to say guilt, is a U-turn. What I find in this country, which is so discerning, it's just very sad how we are treated as brown and black people. How when one of us are killed, the first thing is to try to criminalize the victim. And when that doesn't work, because that person is not a criminal, then you try to discredit them and you try to play up a mental illness. Let me be clear, my sister was not mentally ill. And let me also be clear, if in fact she were, that is not reason to kill someone. What I find is that in the black and brown community, that mental illness is a stigma, and that's something that we as a people have to get past. And because it's a stigma in our community, some of us feel like, oh well, they deserve what they got. So we can say that they were crazy and they deserve to be shot. However, someone who's not black can go into a theater, can go into a church with an assault rifle and kill multitudes of people. And they can be taken into custody and their mental illness is sympathized. Our mental illness is criminalized.
Speak truth, speak truth.
I'm a retired New York City police sergeant from the NYPD. I know about procedures and laws and policies, and those officers that killed my sister totally went against their policies, and what they did was criminal. There is an active cover-up of what happened to my sister. Documents that was FOIA'd through the Freedom of Information Act, highly redacted. Police radio transmissions, which I'm very familiar with the jargon and the lingo and the language, was not released. Within maybe 6 to 9 months, they closed an investigation, which was really not an investigation. So we are actively, and I say we, me, my sisters. My mom, unfortunately, is no longer with us. She internalized her pain, and my mom passed away 2 years ago from pancreatic cancer. But we will continue to pursue justice for my sister, and justice is not about money, because we can clearly have filed our claims for the lawsuit, but I'm more interested in the individuals who were responsible for taking my sister's life. Those officers on that day were furloughed. They were not being paid. The officer who is the catalyst and the reason why my sister is dead was off duty and not in uniform. He placed himself in harm's way by dragging what would you call maybe a parade barrier, it looks like a bike rack, and he dragged it into the path of my sister's moving vehicle. So while the media may have tried to play up an individual who rammed the White House gate, that is not, in fact, the truth. My sister was a half a mile away from the White House. That was not a White House gate, and it was placed in her path. And this individual, who was an off-duty cop who interjected in an on-duty traffic situation because my sister drove into an area which was claimed to be restricted. However, if it were truly restricted, there would have been a gate, a partition, something that would have prevented traffic flow from going into that area. So as my sister went into a restricted area, I surmised she realized she was going in the wrong direction and made a U-turn. And the two on-duty officers who were in uniform they didn't put themselves into the path of my sister's moving vehicle. It was the white off-duty officer who was in plain clothes carrying a water cooler in his hand. You're not identifiable as a police officer at this point. And in the process of this, he fell. And that's what started the chase of my sister for 1.5 miles to the Capitol Circle. And they shot at my sister over 26 times, hitting her in the back of her head, in the back of her back, in the back of her arm, while her 13-month-old baby was in the back seat with the bullets just merely missing my niece. There is a petition on change.org, but also on www.justiceformiriamcarey.com. This October makes 7 years. It's time. It's time for justice. It's time for transparency. It's time for those who are responsible to be held accountable and to be named, because those officers have not been named. I'm here with other families, and I'd rather not be here. And I'm sure the other families feel the same way. I thank everyone for taking the time out to listen and support those who are going through something that some will never ever understand. And some of us speak up for our loved ones, not for attention, but for justice. Thank you.
My name is Brenda Joyner, and I'm Trey Joyner's mom. He got killed in the year of June 8, 09. We have not received any justice. As a mom, loving her son, Trey Joyner, they took away an angel from me and my family. Trey was a very loving, kind person. He loved everyone. He helped the old, the young. That's the kind of person he was. As he's been gone now for 11 years, as his mom that truly loves him with all her heart. The family and I, we grieve a lot. I try to be strong. I just want to know, when is the time that's going to come for us to get the right justice? It's not just my family suffering. It's a lot of families that went through the same thing. When your son or daughter get killed, we go through the same story. They said that Trey had a gun in the night that he got killed on June the 8th, 09. Trey didn't have anything but Trey. At the time that the police got him, before he can get out of the car good, what was explained to me, he got out of the car, didn't run. They said he ran. I don't believe nothing that they have told this family. We're still going through a lot. The love that we have for him, we want justice. And in the process of him getting killed by the U.S. Park Police, they shot Trey 9 times in the back. They tell y'all they only shot Trey for less, but it's more. He was shot in the back, shot 9 times, bullets all over his back and body, lower body loaded down with bullets. What I don't understand with the court system here and the justice system here, they're not doing their job. We had an attorney for Trey. He played his family like a drama. But God is great. He has shown me how they really treat black people. And when these young men get killed, it's the same story. I want to see change. I'm so tired of keep hearing them saying, that young man had a knife or that young man had a gun. They're lying on our children. Our children is sacrificing a lot just to be our children out here. And there's other kids out here now. I got grandkids on both sides, boys and girls. I worry about them constantly. But one thing I will say, in dealing with this life, we're not getting the justice, but I know we are going to get the justice because God has promised us the light of this coming. And as of now, things are beginning to look better. I thank each and every last one of y'all for inviting me here tonight and trying to help each one of us mother and father with our children. I want justice, I want change, and I want us to get some new lawyers that's willing to come in the court and help these families and stop lying to mothers and fathers like they're lying to them. Because in the trade situation, the lawyer that he had, he was a white man, he knew the law, and I knew he knew the law, but God let me go through the life to see how they really treat us. He pretend he had Alzheimer's, schizophrenia, whatever he wanted to name it. He just wanted to get to know what we knew. And all the thing we knew was we loved our son. And he's gone, and the way he was killed, there was no justice. But we're going to get some justice. God promised all of us justice. We're going to get it. And we need people like Al Sharpton, Louis Farragon, and whoever else that want to step to the plate, help these families get some real lawyers. We need a real deal, Holyfield. Our life is in danger every day. And I'm so tired of hearing this same story every day, every week, every month. And we still not getting no justice. But God promised us the glory, and to God be the glory. We're going to get justice. I love each and every last one of y'all, and only God knows our heart. We got to keep trying. I want justice for my son and everybody's son and daughter in this room. There's people all over the world is suffering. I want us to get some answers, and it starts right now, and having lawyers that's willing to step in the room and help us. I would say, I'm not ashamed to say, I don't have money to fight my son's case, but I do want my son's case to be reopened, because when it came time for us to go to court, they had carried Trey case all the way to Philadelphia. He had white parents that I don't know, that I never met. But God say, I'm his mother, and I'm continue to be his mother. I want the help that we all deserve as mothers and fathers for our children. We don't need no lying people standing in front of us, or no judges taking up for these lawyers. These U.S. Park Police, they was big enough to do what they did to shoot this boy in the back, then big enough to take whatever beating that you needed to get whooped with. God say, we're coming to get y'all. It's never too late to step in the room to fight with God. He's going to make a way. He's already making a way. I got the faith. My son Trey, I saw a rainbow the day that I buried him. God let me know, to God be the glory. Everything going to be all right. I live one day at a time, and I care about life within itself. We need this love for one another, stop fighting one another, and help each other. I thank God for all these beautiful people in this room. It doesn't matter what color we is. We all need help. And I thank God for each and every last one of y'all. Have a blessed week and a blessed summer. Take care. Thank y'all.
Hello, everyone. My name is Pamela Brooks. On August the 6th, 2014, my 17-year-old son Amir lost his life. And his only crime was being a teenager enjoying a summer break, riding a dirt bike. In my apartment complex at the time, we had Prince George's County Police doing security in our complex. My son and his cousin were on a dirt bike. They rode the dirt bike up my complex. They were going to get gas for the bike. And this police officer began to chase my son out of the complex. Mind you, he's off duty. He's working security, so he's not even on PG County payroll at this time. So he chased my son a mile on Pennsylvania Avenue on the median on the wrong side of the street. Another mile in the DC, my son lost control and hit a tree. And I'm going to back up a little bit. Before this chase even began, this man called the bike in, described the bike, and the dispatch told this police officer that the bike that he described wasn't, he alleged this bike my son was on was involved in a robbery 8 weeks prior to this chase. He called this dirt bike in, gave him a description of the bike. Dispatch told this man, that's not the bike we're looking for, fall back. He didn't fall back. He kept on chasing my son, all the way down Pennsylvania Avenue, another mile into DC, down Alabama Avenue. My son lost control and he hit a tree. Not to mention his cousin was on the back of the bike with him. Both of them were thrown. My son had so many injuries It was unbelievable. His femur bone was out his leg. Every bone on the right side of his head was crushed. His neck was broke. His back was broke. You might as well say everything in his little body was broke. So this police officer got to the scene of this crash. It's on tape. It shows this police officer getting out of his car, looking at my son on the ground. He got back in the car and pulled off. He rendered no aid to my son, didn't help my son. He went back to my apartment complex, and it was time for him to get off work of his security job. He wrote on the report, I have it, and it says, chase dirt bike fled into DC, period. He never mentioned that he crossed DC line. He never mentioned that he was on the scene. He never mentioned that he saw my son, his cousin, gravely injured on the ground. He didn't even render any aid. My son lived, the accident actually happened on August 4th. He lived 2 days on life support, but God knew best. They knew my son couldn't live with those type of injuries that he had. But my thing is, I think the biggest thing that's hurting me about this whole thing is that this man left my son in the street like an animal. You know, he didn't help him at all. Who's to say if he would have helped him, my son, we don't know now, would he have had a chance to live? Because his heart stopped at the scene. And he had to be medevac to Washington Hospital and gave 50 pints of blood once he arrived. The next day he got another 50 pints of blood. And I think I have so much anger in me because of that. And I mean, I just want to ask this man, why didn't you help him? If you knew you were wrong, okay, you're wrong, take that. Even if you were on or off duty as a police officer, you're supposed to protect and serve, help. Whether you're on or off duty, you knew you were wrong. That's why you left the scene. But nothing was done to this police officer, nothing. He was on desk duty for about a month, administrative, right after. But he's back working. He's still a Prince George's County police officer. He's still working part-time, doing part-time jobs, because I seen him and I approached him. But that's another story. He know who I am. But I want to get to you all. I want you all, like right now, we see it on the news every day, just to let y'all know this can happen to anybody. This is knocking on everybody's door. And people always say, I see it all the time. People talk about how people post about their children on social media, right? But guess what? Who else going to talk about them? Because once the story is done, it's done. Nobody's going to talk about your child. I post about my son every day. I don't care if I put a picture up of me, you're going to see no Chase or Mia Brooks. Behind anything I post, you have to, because we're not high-profile cases. You have to make your case high-profile, and that's what I do. I talk about my son all day long, and the mothers I met along this journey, I hate that I had to meet them like this, but I'm glad that I met them, because some of them have became closer than family to me, and people don't understand this. My son's death has broken me apart. I'm not even the same person anymore. I try to be, but I'm not. The family's not the same. And just like she said, my mother died 2 years after my son's death, and I know my mother died from grief. My son's death killed my mother, so there's 2 deaths back to back in my family, and people, I try to go on with a normal life, but I stay a lot to myself. I try to get away because I don't want to be bothered with people, because it's just what it does to the family. That's what life after death, It tears the family to pieces. No matter how hard you try to live a normal life, you have this shield on that people don't know what's behind it. People say, oh, you smiling. If you only knew, I'm messed up in the inside. But I just don't talk about it, because I know people get tired of people talking about their children. But I'm glad I have a gang of moms around me that don't judge me when I want to talk about my son. Because you have a lot of people, you see the expressions, you see how they look at you. They don't want to hear it. But until they knock on their door, you wait, you see how they act then. Because it's nothing we asked to be a part of. And like every day, it's like, I just came back from vacation. I shut off social media. I didn't want to see anything going on in the United States. As soon as I got back to the States, my phone beeping with this stuff going on with the guy shot in the back. It's like over here, it's just a mess. And people better wake up, because like I said, it can happen to anybody. Anybody. Amen. And people don't get that. Like, I never thought I'd be up here doing this. Like, I was with Miss Carr, we was with Miss Carr earlier. My son died 3 weeks after Eric Garner, 3 days before Michael Brown. Then Tamir Rice was a couple months later. It was 4 back-to-back killings by police officers. And none of them were charged. Now, what's wrong with that picture? What's wrong with that picture? In any of these instances with any of our children, if they had killed those police officers, you already know what would have happened. They would have beat them up, tortured them, killed them, but they would definitely be in jail. But these people are walking around freely, living life like it's all good, and it's not. You destroy families. But that's like any other thing. We don't want any money, and that's the first thing people ask me, did you sue? Did you sue? What the hell that got to do with anything? It's not gonna bring my son back. I want this man to be in jail. And I think that's what we all want. He caused my son's death, and he was wrong. We want these people to go to jail just like they would have did our children. Lock them up like they would have did our children, and that's it.
Good evening. I'm Brissette Lane, Raphael Briscoe mother.
You got it. Go ahead. Take your time. Take your time. Take your time.
Thank you, thank you. It's hard to talk about it. It's really, really hard to keep. Every time you talk about it, you reliving the death of your child. And nothing has happened. Raphael was on Elvins Road, southeast, on a hot, I guess it was about to be a summer day, and unmarked jump out. As they say, they don't have jump outs, but they still have jump outs. Enter the complex. So they saw Raphael, and Raphael, he's hyper. He always been hyper. He walks on his toes, so he bounces. So they asked him, they said, you got a gun on you? Raphael was a little guy. He wore, most of them wear their pants, fit to them, and their shirts. So he lifted his hands up and let them know that he didn't have a gun. So Raphael continued to walk, and that was his right. He can walk away. He can walk away from them. So he walked away, and remind you, they was in an unmarked car, a truck. They wasn't in police uniform. They was in regular clothes. So it was 4 officers. The 2 in the back jumped out the vehicle, and Raphael started walking real fast, and he started running. So the 2 officers on foot chased Raphael. And the driver and the police officer in the back of the driver was in high-speed chase of Raphael, and Raphael running. But prior, Raphael was on his phone 3 minutes before he was shot. So Raphael running down Elvis Road. It's a little white house. Like if you go down, it's a cut. I guess they know this cut that they can get away or whatever. And the reason I think Raphael ran is because they always come around harassing the black men in the community for no reason, just harass them. So as Raphael running, you can see the truck pursuing Raphael. So Raphael is just, cause he know how to run, he ran track. So he's getting it. And so like they told me, they said he was smoking them. He was smoking the truck. So I guess he was upset that Raphael was running so fast. So Raphael running with his cell phone in his hand. And by the time he turned the corner of the house, you can see in the video, Raphael, mind you, that the shooting of Raphael was caught on their CCTV. Now, the video, the TV, the camera, it rotates. It constantly rotates. It don't stay on, it just rotates. But that was just only God, because it stayed on Raphael the whole time, from the beginning to the end. It captured everything. It captured, so let me go back. So when Raphael fell, Raphael is right-handed.
Raphael falls, his hands goes up, and you see Raphael's falling. And when he falls, they move Raphael. They move Raphael to the left-hand side. They took and handcuffed Raphael. They put their knee in Raphael back. God, get me strong. So they said that the BB gun that Raphael supposed to have was a broken BB gun. Now, Raphael was just on his cell phone before he was shot. There's no way that Raphael, the way he was running, can transfer a cell phone to his pocket and pull out a gun. So they said the BB gun was broken. If the BB gun was broken, it would have crumbled all up and down Elvin's Road. The camera, so when they go out, they label the objects, placards, placard 1, 2, 3. So placard 3 is considered as the BB gun. So placard 3 is at the foot of Raphael on the left-hand side. Now remind you, Raphael is right hand. He fell this way. So that means that if it was a gun or whatever he had, would have slid that way, not to the left. So you can see in the video, an officer doing like this in the video. He's kicking trying to kick the BB gun close to Raphael. So during the so they called me. They never charged the police officer for Raphael's death. MPD decided not to charge him. So I asked questions. I said, well, why didn't you charge him? They didn't have a reason. They couldn't give me a reason why he wasn't charged. All they said was, oh, it took a second or an instant. Okay, so still, why didn't you charge him? So as I left, they told me, they said, they knew it was some bull crap. They told me, they said, you stay on MPD, because they knew it was some bull crap. So we went to court. Like they said, it's not about the money. I never wanted the money. I want justice for my son. So we went to court. So they say, well, go to court because, you know, if you get some money or you get them, that's proving they guilty. Okay, let's do this. Okay, whatever you say. So when we get to court, we had a person to like look at the video and do the video. And in court, we found out that coming out the truck, we saw something coming out the truck. They threw the BB gun out the truck, and where it landed, it was placard number 3, the BB gun. So in trial, because this is the gun recovery unit, in trial they said, well, you know, when we do our little training, we had BB guns to do our training. Oh, so you had a BB gun in your car. Raphael's fingerprints was never on the gun, and it was a hot-ass day. Why did the police have on gloves? Okay. This is what they do. The whole time we was in trial, my lawyer, he had him, because my lawyer, he's a criminal lawyer. So he was just going at him. He's sweating. He can't look at me. I'm staring him down. And he's like, he's shaking. He said, well, I thought he had a gun. I thought that's what I seen. I thought. So by this time, we had to wait till the next day and come back. So by this time, you know, they telling him what to say the next day. The next day he come back, all he says, I fear for my life. Excuse my language, how the fuck you fear for your life and you're in a big ass truck? My son feared for his life. Oh, it pisses me off, I'm sorry. It pisses me off. Come to find out, he's a detective now. So you get, oh, so you become a detective because you killed the black boy? So they asked them in court, they said, well, why was you pursuing Raphael? Was he committed a crime? Was he someone you all was looking at? Have you ever seen Raphael? They said, no, we never seen him before. So why did you pursue him? Because you was mad, because when you went into that area, there was nobody around, so you said, okay, and then he started running. He had the right to run. He don't have to stay and talk to you all. That's his given right. He wasn't under arrest. And then you never told Raphael that you was a police officer. My son, if you look at the video, it looks like my son, it was a drive-by on my son by the police officer. The jury was majority white. Majority white. And it was 3 black juries. So what did you see that day in trial that even if you didn't see just being black, you should have just made it a mistrial, point blank, a mistrial? We have a change petition going on to try to get Raphael's case reopened because it was never, it never went anywhere. It just stayed within MPD. I just like to say thank you all for always, because I was fighting in the court. I was fighting in the court, just fighting them. And it was hard, it was rough, it was just, But I thank you all for continuing to mention Raphael's name, to keep Raphael's name alive and his story, because no one knew his story. And the reason why no one knew his story, because it was on a gag order. They put it on a gag order. The only reason why Raphael's videotape was released because we lost in civil trial. So if I would have took the money from them, Raphael's case would have never came to surface. No one else could use Raphael's case. So I thank God for doing what he's doing. I don't know why he do the things he do, but only he knows what he do. Yeah. I just have to continue to trust him because I know justice will be prevailed for Raphael and for all our children. Thank you all.
Can we please give one love to the families of Marion Carey, and Raphael Disco? You know, as we sit here, ladies, all I heard was, oh, hell no. I want y'all to take that passion, share that change.org petition like we shared our thoughts on that WAP video. What you're hearing right now, and I explain this on the air every day, for every viral name we know, there's a good 10 to 20 that never saw the light of day. I challenge everyone in this room, no matter what part of the village that you rep, go back to your city, Google, and then join those families in a fight to bring the justice that should have been. The second thing I'll tell you is the overlying thing is we want justice, and we see these officers never being held accountable. I want to introduce you to the Law Enforcement Bill of Rights. The Law Enforcement Bill of Rights is the reason why we stare at TVs. Right now we have tears in our eyes for the justice that has been robbed of you, taken. Because the Law Enforcement Bill of Rights says a cop gets 10 days to write their narrative. That they can only be investigated by another officer in the precinct in which they work. They can see the body cam. They get to see all the evidence. They get the names, information, and addresses of everybody who is saying that they want them charged. That sounds fair to y'all? No. That sound like something that should be right? That on the liberties that we just get as individuals, they get about 4 more tiers.
Y'all didn't come for homework, but you got some today. I want you to go home and I want you to research the Law Enforcement Bill of Rights and how it's been adopted by police unions, your council members, your states, your city representatives, and they stare you in your face and tell you they have no idea why justice keeps slipping through your fingers. They have every goddamn idea. So start pushing them to change that, because when we change that, you can't hide behind your coworker guiding you and telling you everything. We change that, they get arrested on the scene when they take a life like we would. I couldn't go do it. You heard these stories tonight? You think anybody in this room could have did any of the things you heard? We'd be sending you kites and putting money on your books right now as we speak. They're not above the law. Hell, they ain't even the law. God is the law. So the Law Enforcement Bill of Rights, and take these change out petitions, and I want you to post them. Like we talk about Fenty X Rihanna when she's gonna drop her album and everything in between. Share this. We are that power. It may not be viral now, or so you think, because in my mind you are.
Come on.
They will be viral tomorrow, but in order for that to happen, that is on us.
Come on.
So again, I thank you. I know sharing these stories are not easy.
No.
I'm hearing pieces as a person that covered those stories here that I could not get. We would ask for information and we get the runaround. You go through 80 emails. Stay in touch with me. You may not think you have a voice here in media, to hell you say. I got a text group called Black TV Radio Producers, and we don't do anything but share stories that we know need more light. So keep me in the Rolodex.
Yes.
Keep me.
Yes.
Thank y'all so much again. We love you, we wrap you in love, and we got you.
There was a quick change of plan that now we're going to bring.
Yes. I'm coming to hug you too. Law Enforcement Bill of Rights. Y'all didn't know about that, did y'all? Come on up. Like, listen, we family here. We're getting ready for, ready to come? Andre? While we wait for Andre, I'm always here to learn something.
Okay, I want to say very briefly that I know about the Law Enforcement Bill of Rights. Marion Hopkins and I have testified in Annapolis quite a few times against the Law Enforcement Bill of Rights. And we had asked for a special prosecutor to investigate homicides by law enforcement when they kill. And they said, we don't need that bill. But every time it comes up, we will be in Annapolis. So please, please, continue to fight and vote.
Thank you. A special announcement before we get with Honoré.
Okay, families, before you leave, there's a butterfly with your family's member name on it. We're going to be doing a butterfly release, I guess right after this. So please don't leave before you get your butterfly. One thing that I want to say is I released butterflies for my sister on her birthday and her death day. The significance for me is that when my sisters and I traveled to Niagara Falls, butterflies were just gravitating towards my sister, and I got really, really nice pictures of butterflies laying on my sister. So that's a moment that I share with my sister that I remember. So I'm here in DC, and I don't want to think about how my sister, how horrifically that she died. Her death is not the sum of her life. And I want all of us to know that our loved ones are more than the way that they died. So tonight I want to release butterflies, not just for Miriam, but for Corinne, and for India, and for Terrence, and for Amir, and for so many of us. I want to release butterflies for them and to think of those special memories that you have with your loved one and not think of the horrific way that they were taken away from us. Thank you.
Thank you. And now I give you Honoré. Wait a minute, y'all. I said, now I give you Honoré. That's when you give me the snaps and the claps.
I want y'all to just Google Black Joy Experience. She the one holding it down. Y'all know when we be in them streets and we be saying them chants, she make music out of those chants. Yo, on all music platforms, Black Joy Experience, and she ready to drop Black Joy Experience too. Yo, follow her. Follow her. All right, Black Joy Experience.
Thank y'all so much. To God be the glory for mothers, for strong mothers and strong sisters. If y'all don't mind just closing your eyes real quick, those who are willing and able. So there's this misconception, especially in the Baptist church, Christian church, that we have to forgive on the spot. We have to move past our anger and our frustrations immediately. But I want y'all to know that it's okay to rest in your frustration. It's okay to rest in your hurt and in your pain. It's okay for you to be upset, to be sad, to shed tears. But I also want you to know that we are here to support you in the best way that we can to move through that. To move through it so that you can get to your healing. To move through it so that you can get to your freedom and rest in your peace. To move through it so that you can finally experience justice for your family members.
I changed it like 3 times. Both of them. They keep dying. I just changed.
And so, while we have been told for years that we cannot experience joy, I'm here today to help us to reclaim that joy, to claim that joy. Because Black joy is something that helps to sustain us through our trauma. Our joy is something that we are entitled to. And so I want you real quick, as you have your eyes closed, I want you to think about that thing, those things that bring you joy. Whether that's a warm bubble bath, whether that's a hot meal, a good meal. For me, it's Wendy's. It's Wendy's 4 for 4. I'm just saying. Whether that's a glass of water in the morning, whether that's prayer and meditation, whether it's getting a smile from somebody from across the room, whether it's getting embraced, receiving a hug, we are reclaiming and or claiming our joy today. And we're going to do our best again to push you through to get to your healing. Can we commit to that today?
Yes.
So I'm going to play a song. For those of you who would like to stand up, feel free to stand up. For those of you who want to vibe, want to do a little 2-step, feel free. Now I want you to know I don't sing. Nene hit me up and said, can you come and sing? I said, Nene, I don't sing. I make music. Y'all don't want to hear me sing. I don't want to mess up the vibe. But I'm going to play a song that I produced in partnership with my friend Jonathan Likes, amazing vocalist. The song is called Healing, and it's a bit upbeat, so feel free to vibe with me, okay? I'm going to try to sing it so you can know the hook, okay? You ready? So I want you to repeat after me. Say this. Healing, 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 healing. Mind, body, and soul, yes. Mind, body, and soul, yes. You ready? Go. Healing, 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 healing. Say that with me. Mind, body, and soul, yes. Mind, body, and soul, yes. One more time. Y'all got it. You got it. Ready? Healing, 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 healing. Mind, body, and soul, yes. Thanks, Ayana. Mind, body, and soul, yes. One more time. You got it? Healing, 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 You got it.
My body and soul, yes.
They're ready.
Healing, 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 healing.
Hey.
My body and soul, yes.
Keep going.
My body and soul, yes.
Oh, that was sweet. You got it? Yeah. That's easy, right? Hey. Put your hands like this. You ready? Go. I see you, mama. I see you. You got it? Hey. Just follow me. If you want to just rock, you can rock. You want to wave your hands, you can wave your hands. Hey. Yes. I see you. Yes. You rest in our healing today, y'all. You deserve our healing today, y'all. You ready? Let's go. You ready? Hey, let's go. Say, healing, 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 healing. My body and soul, yes. You ready? My body and soul, yes. One more time. You ready? Hey, healing, 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 healing. Hey, you got it. My body and soul, yes. My body and soul. We reclaim that healing today, y'all. You got it? Let me sing it. I need your body and soul. And I'm gonna explain it. I told you and I want you. Hey. I hear these words right here. Yes. We need some healing in the lives today, y'all. We need that healing in the lives today. Healing in my life. So much.
That joint was cranky. That joint cranky. That joint was cranky. Yes.
It's okay. That's how we know you're a true artist. He was walking off with my mic.
Now what are we supposed to do?
Is Lorenzo?
We'll now have a performance
Lorenzo? It's Lorenzo with the poem, right?
by Ayana Gregory.
A poem
A poem?
by Lorenzo.
Oh, Lorenzo will do his poem. Okay, so instead, Lorenzo, will you please join us and bless us with your poem? Lorenzo? He ready now? You gotta get your notes.
The parent will be
I want to thank you again for spending your evening with us. A reminder to follow Black Lives Matter DC on every social media platform of your choice. Please stay connected with the families that you've met this evening, and let's continue this journey of love. You ready?
Yes. What's going on, everybody? I will be reading an excerpt of a poem called Ancestors by Sonny Patterson.
I'm changing my
Y'all ready?
voice.
Ancestor, breathe, bridge, carry us over tumultuous times. You who can hear and answer with quick remedy, ready before we ask. You who can speak through tongues of trees and fire and water. Earth cannot hold you. We pound the ground and you appear, O ancient ones. You who can make lightning strike with a flick of a skirt. You who can make tornado turn with a spin and span of hips. Take us there, to the place of knowing, to the hall that leads us to the doorway of you, O holy ones. You are the first light. You who know the potential of possibility pulsing in the dark. Deliver us unto our gifts. You who have sunlight in your fingertips. Touch our drums. Make us hear the rising. Make us move a steady stomp. Acquire voices so majestic, heaven hides us in a tapestry of life. We are stars, blankets of wonder. Sky bright, eye seeing the invisible, visible. You who have returned. You who have turned our faces so that we see ourselves. And we have found you again in places we would have never have imagined. You make our limits infinitely long, our visions clearer with eyes closed, and even there you still stand in full color, vibrant and eager to serve. They come, they come, they come. Ashe.
Ashe.
Ashe. Thank you.
Next panel? Yep, next panel.
Okay, we will bring up our next panel. May I please have the families of India Kager, Alonzo Smith, Corinne Gaines, and Terrence Sterling.
Got your mic on? Did you get your mic? You gotta go back there and let her mic in right there.
You want to go get the picture? Excuse me. You want to go get the picture now? Because
As long as they use this, right?
Too ahead of me.
You fine, Mama, come on. We just wanted you to see them shoes one more time. Thank you.
That's right. You wanna go first? You wanna go first?
Well, I used to get one by myself.
Thank you for your patience. Ready to start with us?
Oh, okay.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Rhonda Dormis, and I'm the mother of Corinne Gaines. My next to the youngest daughter was killed August 1st, 2016, by Baltimore County Police Officer Royce Ruby. On this day, law enforcement went to her house to serve a misdemeanor warrant for failure to appear. And they decided, because they heard something in her home and no one was responding, that they would take and enter her house with a key that they obtained from the rental office. So my daughter, who legally owned a shotgun that she had purchased from another issue she had with the property, heard someone coming in her house with a key, knowing that everyone that owned a key was in the house. she had her shotgun and she was sitting in her living room floor waiting for whoever it was that was coming through. So initially they opened the door, but the chain was on and they kicked the door open, and that's when they found her sitting in the floor with the shotgun. Of course, upon seeing this, you know, that changes the game. So now they have to escalate it up and call for backup. My daughter had an issue with law enforcement. She had personal experiences with them, and she had been witness and, you know, just how everybody is feeling now about Freddie Gray and Sandra Bland and all the other, you know, children of mothers, you know, that she wanted to protect her home, and she didn't want to leave out of her home. So they escalated to she was holding my grandson hostage. My grandson was 5 years old. He wanted to be at home with his mother, and she wouldn't come out. So, like I said, it was, you know, carried out like she was holding him hostage. What did they call it? It was a standoff. Yeah, it was a standoff. So I don't, you know, my daughter's birthday was Monday. I really don't want to rehash everything. But what happened was she was streaming live. You know, she was explaining live why she was not going to turn her body over to law enforcement because they had mishandled her before. Approximately 3 o'clock, around that time, the Baltimore County Police requested that Facebook shut her page down. And about 3 to 4 minutes after her page went down, she was shot through her back in her kitchen while she was making my grandson a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. Okay, so I mean, my daughter, you know, she was a loving mother. She doted on her children. She was a loving sister and a loving daughter. And at the end of the day, and I'm gonna jump forward a little bit because I just don't want to rehash all of this. We have to control our own narratives with our children, because had I not stood back and let a lawyer direct me in what had been done wrong to my daughter, I would have thought, like society thought, oh, she had a gun, she wouldn't come out, she deserved what she got. But my lawyer was able to find information to indicate otherwise. All the policies that were broken, shooting through a wall blindly, and making a deposition statement saying that he could not see my daughter. Initially, he could not see my daughter, but he saw her hair and her braids, and shot blindly through a wall, hitting her in her back, striking my grandson twice, 5 years old, my grandson Cody, shot twice by Officer Royce Ruby. So fast forward, we obtained a civil trial, contained 4 white women and 2 black women. These women sat on this jury trial for 3 weeks and heard all the evidence. And at the end, they awarded my family $38 million, in which the judge went behind them and overturned it. He said that we tricked them. He said that we, hoodwinked them, that they were feeling sorry for us. So of course we responded, and we went over their heads. And just July 1st this year, the appellate court decided that that judge, Officer Mickey, oh God, I can never remember this man. Mickey Norman, that's what his name, Judge Mickey Norman, had abused his discretion in overturning that case because the jurors had made their decision. They made their decision. What I want to say too is that when we're going through these kind of traumas, if we don't fast forward think and understand that there's some things that could possibly be wrong, we can't just give up on our children because society says that they were wrong. And even though society may view it that way, they're not on the inside. They don't know what we deal with. It was 8 to 10 family members there with my daughter, and we were not allowed to communicate with her. When I first got there, I was the first on the scene. My daughter had a meltdown a couple of years ago, and she was having an emotional crisis. So she had been seeing a therapist. I got to the scene with my phone in my hand, with her therapist on the phone. The officer who claimed to have been the lead negotiator took my phone from me, hung it up, and said that he will communicate with the doctor when he felt deemed it necessary. He then proceeded to take my phone and call and communicate with my daughter and my family as though he were me. See, these are the things that the public don't know about. This is policy broken all the way down the road. You know, and if we don't get off this conveyor belt walking backwards and recognize that we need to do our own research and do our own homework and not let the public put things in our minds or distract us from what's factual. All of our children have had people just tear their character down. And we have to constantly fight and build up our children's humanity. Because they don't look at us as humans. You know, they want to tear us down, and we're already broken. And now we have to muster up the strength to argue and defend and fight. The general public, not to mention the people that don't get a court, get a day in court. I was blessed in that. But it's still not easy because I don't care if they gave me a money printing machine. My daughter is irreplaceable for me. You understand what I'm saying? So they give you some glimmer of hope, they snatch it back, and then they want to dictate to you how you should move forward. You know, we have to we are in a constant fight for our lives. You know, heartbroken, I've had strokes. You know, I know mothers that have actually died fighting for their children because the heartbreak is profound. You know, we don't know how to move forward without the hurt. The hurt follows us everywhere we go. But we have to stand tall through the hurt. And again, like I said, defend, fight. You know, it's just so unfair. Yeah, and survival is not easy. I'm 54 years old. I never thought I'd be raising a baby again. You know, I got my granddaughter when she was 14 months old when my daughter was killed. So I was starting all over again. And so it's hard. You know, people don't know what the aftermath is like for us. It's extremely rough. It's extremely rough. We just have to really, really fight. We have to band together. We have to express our feelings instead of people imposing their feelings on us.
Precisely.
You know, and I'm done. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Yes.
Still standing.
Still standing.
Hello, everyone. My name is Beverly Smith, and my son's name is Alonzo Smith. My son Alonzo was killed in the custody of 2 special police officers on November the 1st, 2015 at the Marlboro Plaza apartment complex. Alonzo was 27 years old. He was a substitute teacher at the Acatink Academy School in Virginia for youth who have learning and behavior challenges. My son Alonzo was also a published poet. He was also a portrait model, and he was also a father of 3. Early November the 1st, around 4 a.m. in the morning, the residents of the Marlboro Plaza apartment complex heard and saw my son running, saying, "Help, help, someone's trying to kill me." So the residents called the local police officers. When they arrived on the scene, my son Alonzo was lying face down, handcuffed. One special police officer had his knee with his total body weight in my son's back while my son lay lifeless. The Metro police officer asked the special police officer, "Do you know him?" They said no. They said, "Oh, he was acting kind of strange, like he was on PCP or something." My son was not armed. My son did not commit any crime, and he did not have any PCP in his system. The police officer asked the special police officer, "Is that your phone?" Because you can see on a YouTube video through the body cam of MPD that one of the special police officers was on the stairway going through my son's cell phone. He said no and threw my son's cell phone down on the ground. Fast forward, when the case went to the grand jury, they had to do a search warrant on Alonzo Wilson, that's one of the police officers who's responsible for my son's death. They had to do a search warrant in his home for my son's cell phone. He had my son's cell phone, he stole it. To this day, I do not know why. There is currently a civil suit going on My son's case went to the grand jury. However, after 11 months, as we all know what goes on with most of these police cases, when there was a murder involved, there was no indictment. It took almost 2 years for me to even find out the name of the special police officers who killed my son. My son's autopsy report states that he had a hemorrhage in the C2 area of his neck. He also had, what you call when you be bleeding?
A spleen, the ruptured internal bleeding?
Massive bleeding.
Hemorrhaging.
Yes, he was hemorrhaging in 2 areas of his back, and he had some bruises and contusions, throughout his body. The autopsy revealed that my son's death was indeed a homicide. However, the cause and matter is very tricky, and what a lot of people don't know is that the medical examiner office and MPD, sometimes they are in cahoots with each other, because they made it very tricky with my son's cause and matter of death. They say he had not PCP in his system. They said, oh, he had cocaine in his system. He died from that, but he also died from the compression of the torso. Well, the compression of the torso was the officer's knee in my son's back. That's what actually killed my son. He cut off his oxygen, but before that, my son was chokehold to death. That's where the C2 hemorrhage in his neck come from, and the hemorrhaging in 2 areas in my son's back. It's still very traumatic for me today, and for his children and for his family and friends, and particularly his students. His students had a vigil at his school for him, and I've never seen anything like it. They made a paper mirror that went from one end of gymnasium to the other end, leaving notes to my son saying, I love you, Mr. Smith. I'm going to be good for you, Mr. Smith. Mr. Smith, you were like a dad. The school faculty and the kids, they loved my son. The school faculty told me that my son was a master of his trade, in which he was. My son attended Morgan State University for 2 years to get his degree in social study.
Social work.
Yeah, social work. I have to excuse me. It's very hard sometimes to tell these stories, and when you repeatedly do them over and over again, sometimes things get kind of fuzzy. But my son went to Morgan State University for 2 years to get his degree in social worker. And before my son's death, he was actually in preparation to return back to school to get his degree. It's just unfortunately that his life was taken, that he wasn't able to fulfill that dream. And I was so ever proud of my son. My son went through a lot of bad adversity as a youth. And I used to tease him about the kids that he taught. And I said, you really get along well with those kids? And he used to say, yeah, Mom, because at one time I was one of them. And that was one of the gifts that he had. He could actually identify to the kids that he taught, and they could actually identify to him and respond back positively. I can recall during the Justice for Zoe campaign, when we were canvassing the neighborhood, that I met a resident, and she told me that her son was actually one of my son's students. And she said that before my son became her student, her son could not complete a complete sentence. He could not catch the bus by himself. She said, but a little while after being under my son's guidance, that he's able to do all of those things at that time now and more. And so that had brought so much warmth to me to know that my son had made a positive impact on youth. And I just believe that he had made a tremendous impact on a lot of youth. Although he just lived 27 years, he made so many positive impacts on youth, more than the people who have lived much longer than him. And his legacy still continues on today. When this uprising started beginning after the George Floyd's death, I have been getting calls and texts from his students asking me if there's anything that they can do to help and to assist me. And I know during in the beginning, when George Floyd was killed, it was very hard for me to look at the video. So I did see the picture, which was very hard because my son Alonzo was killed almost in the same manner. So instead of the officer foot being on his neck, it was in his back, his knee actually in my son's back. Today, I have partnered with a nonprofit organization called DC Justice Lab, which is a group of young lawyers, young Black African American lawyers, who are experts in writing policy and advocating for reform, specifically for DC, which is the only nonprofit organization who directly advocating for reform and disarm special police officers in the district area. And we have 4 demands. One of the demands is to disarm all of the special police officers in DC, to increase not only the quality but the quantity of training, and also to pass the Special Police Officers Oversight Act, which is written by Charles Allen, and to also keep these special police officers within the boundaries that they are assigned for. One of the problems that we have in the district with special police officers is that a lot of residents have complaints of the special police officers from the residents in which they monitor and government buildings. They have nowhere where they can go to complain. Also, there is enough oversight of the special police officers, so they are not held accountable a lot of times for their infractions. So this is what this petition is trying to do, trying to get enough signatures so that we can present this petition to the DC Council and to Mayor Bowser. There is currently now a petition that is on Colors of Change. I would like for each of you to go on there and please sign the petition, because we definitely need reform, and also in the area of not just Metropolitan Police, but also with special police in the DC area. I would like to thank each and every one of you for listening, for you all continued support, for all the families that are impacted by police brutality. And again, I'm always thinking Black Lives Matter. You know, some of us get into trouble because we're always boasting about Black Lives Matter and how much they support their local residents. Sometimes we as parents, we get a lot of flack from other families in other states, but it is the truth. Black Lives Matter DC really represents and support their local family. And they have been with me. They have actually been with me in the beginning of the Justice for Zoe campaign, and even now, they're still standing beside my side. Anytime I call on them for anything, they are always there. So I really want to thank you again for always being that good support for myself and the rest of the local families in the DC metropolitan area. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, family. Before I start, I'm just going to say the divinity in me recognizes and acknowledges the divinity in each one of you. I am Gina Best. My daughter is India Jasmine Kager. My baby was stalked, ambushed, and murdered by a literal lynch mob of 16 plus Virginia Beach Police SWAT officers on September 5th, 2015. So let me let that just stay pregnant in the air, because her angelversary, if you want to call it that, or whatever date, the death date, or the day she was stolen, let me use that, will be next Saturday. That's 5 years of persistent trauma, persistent tears, persistent uncertainty, persistent rage for me. And as the mothers know, I'm the one who lets that anger propels me. I'm the one who says, I'll never forgive, ever. So let me tell you a little bit about India and what I want each one of you all to let sit in your hearts about her. My daughter India was very soft-spoken, very quiet, very gentle. She spoke with a slow cadence and she walked with a slow pace, very deliberate. India played 5 instruments, self-taught. She was never one to seek the center of attention, and she was beautiful in every facet of the word imaginable. All right. So on September 5th, Angelo Perry came to Maryland. Excuse me, let me backtrack that. 2 days before, they chose to go back to Virginia Beach, where Angelo Perry's family was going to be holding a family reunion. He was not part of India's life in the usual sense that they were in a relationship, but they had a baby together, and he wanted to meet the baby for the first time a few days before India. They drove down to Virginia Beach. Unbeknownst to him, unbeknownst to India, definitely, as they entered the city of Virginia Beach, the entire SWAT team had been assembled. Mind you all, this was Labor Day weekend, and typically for any police force, they're going to be out on the street or whatever, but they had, on a Saturday, the entire SWAT team. So I'm just, let that stay for a moment, because I'm going to come back to this falsity that they put up about training and things of that nature. I'm about to dismantle that shit. Okay, so excuse my Swahili, but I meant that. Okay. They watched my daughter as she got in and out of her car, India, carrying Roman's car seat. They went from house to house, and she was introducing the baby to Angelo's family for the first time. What the police did not report is that they did also surveil India as she went to a Shell convenience store, went in the store, there was a video that came out, India went to the left, talked to the clerk looking for something, and then went down an aisle. She was in that Shell gas station convenience store for upwards of almost 5 minutes, which means that if the Virginia Beach police wanted to do what's called a takedown operation, they had ample time to do that. But let's backtrack and really ask the questions, which, as we all know, that within the media, local, they are always the megaphone for the police departments. We know that they put out destructive narratives about our loved ones. We know that they vilify our loved ones, where we have to then go back and defend and speak the truth, when we are walking, and one of my phrases, and Rhonda, the sisters knows, is we're dealing with amputated hearts every day. So it's enough to try to cope with that, all right? Let me take a breath for a moment, because as you all know, this is just, it is beyond taxing on us psychologically, physically, spiritually, emotionally, because this is something that is irrevocable, with something inescapable. We'll never get beyond this. But what I think of is what happened to each one of our loved ones as those bullets were piercing their bodies. That every last one of our loved ones who were stolen, what were their last thoughts? Okay? Mind you, 16 officers had a chance to de-escalate. None of them chose to do that. None of them. They saw India. They knew the baby was in the car. They chose to move forward with their actions, completely ignoring her, the sanctity of her life, the sanctity of the baby's life, the sanctity, and the right to, due process of law for Angelo Perry, if the complaints that they were saying were true. We know they're not, always. But what they did is they waited till India got in her car from the Shell gas station. She drove to the 7-Eleven, and India was always a very timid, she didn't get her license until she was 22 anyway. So They said that she was driving defensively. How do you drive a big old Cadillac defensively? Again, they choose words intentionally to sanitize their actions and always put our loved ones in a position of doing wrong. That is their MO. It hasn't changed. And we're going to do something about that. I'm going to touch on that for a moment. It's going to change, but it's going to take a different approach. They waited until my baby drove into 7-Eleven parking lot, and as India was driving into the spot, the white panel van on the right side and a blue SUV truck ran into the back of India's car with such force it lifted up the back of her car. Now, mind you, they launched the attack first. They launched the attack first. Then while they were running into the back of India's car, they detonated flashbang grenades and threw them at India's car. So very similar to what Sister Valerie was saying about her sister, Miriam. Every last one of those officers there knew what they were doing. These were deliberate actions. These were things that were designed to not apprehend, to not quote unquote arrest, to certainly not preserve life, but to kill. Every last one of them had that in their mind, to kill, because they had already separated and divorced themselves from any semblance of humanity because they did not see our loved ones as human people who deserving to live. They chose not to do this. And I dare say every last one of them were Caucasian, with the exception of a few. But the majority that killed our loved ones were Caucasian. So what does that tell us? My baby, as she was in her car, driver, Angela Perry was only maybe 5'5". India was very petite. She was like 5'2", little tiny hands, being just very petite. Baby's in the back seat behind his father, okay? They threw flashbang grenades. 4 of the SWAT officers jumped out of the back of the panel van, and they commenced to fire 51 rifle rounds into my daughter's car. The narrative that the police put out is 30. But no matter what, it's 50, 30, or even 1. It was excessive force and completely unnecessary. But they knew this, family. We know they knew this. Did they care? Absolutely not. They did not care. So I imagine what helps me get through is imagining the calling of this is what? Ancestors watching over? Can someone help me with that? Ancestors watching, all right? We as mothers are living in a position now where our descendants have now become our ancestors. That's profound. That is, yes, you said unthinkable? Yes, unimaginable, because no doubt that as we were birthing our children, we never thought we would ever be in this position, but we are. We have to cry ourselves to sleep every day, mothers and sisters, every single day. But I put myself in my daughter's seat as she sat in that car, hearing Roman cry. I mean, they threw flashbang grenades, and if you all know what a flashbang grenade does, is it renders you can't see and you can't hear. The percussive sound of that is, it renders you cannot hear, you can't see. Yet they claimed Angelo Perry miraculously somehow contorted his body and shot at the police officers. Miraculously. No, we all know what the deal is. What Virginia Beach police have not reported is that Angelo Perry did spend time behind bars from the age of 21 to 34. Where they murdered India and Angelo Perry was 3 miles from the home where he was raised. They claim he was on his way to commit a crime, and that's why they did this. That they got a tip from a confidential informant, and that's why he did this. So what did they do? They positioned him front and center, and they erased India. They wrote a report, and there was 1 paragraph on India. 1. No apology, nothing. Later on sent me a bill to get rid of the car, to dispose of the car that they murdered my baby in, the very car that her grandfather gave her. So I'm giving an abbreviated version of this because I want to say something to all the mothers, to all the family members, to all of our justice workers, everybody here. We ask for justice all the time. That's the word that they're used to. These past 5 years, I've had to define and redefine what does justice look like for me. Is that really what I want for my daughter? Justice for each one of our children, our loved ones, would have been them never being killed in the first place. I want, in the name of our ancestors, Retribution. That rings different. Retribution. Can you all say that with me? Retribution. Say it one more time louder so our ancestors, our loved ones do hear that. Retribution. Because what happens is if they hear us asking for that, what does that have a connotation of? An eye for an eye. An eye for an eye. You came for mine, I want retribution, because the same way that we cry every night, y'all's mothers need to feel the same pain. There is no way that we're going to keep, they see us crying all the time. We saturate our pillows with tears. Have our tears moved them? 400 plus years, pushing 500. Babies snatched away from their mothers, our ancestors. Have our tears ever moved them? White supremacy has always been the bedrock of what we experience now. They never see us as human. And they hide behind their badges. We know how police forces were started. They were patty rollers, and they were property. They were out there to defend and protect property. Just 2 days ago, 2 brothers shot. They let that little white boy walk down the street carrying, what, an AR, what was that, a 15? Well, they killed Tamir Rice, 12-year-old little boy, with a play gun. Every last one of our loved ones, if they were white, and I'm going to call it out, there would have been a different outcome. Because the world would erupt if black police officers started killing white so-called U.S. citizens. It would be a different world as it is right now. But they get licensed through qualified immunity, through all the laws that protect them, and what do we have? Memories of our babies. Broken hearts, bleeding hearts, where we have to rely on one another for support. We say the same thing over and over again. Their MO is the same. Shoot an innocent black person. If he or she were unarmed, plant something. Say that they had some kind of weapon. Find a way to justify their murderous actions.
That's what the 10 days are for.
That's what, honey?
That's what the 10 days are for.
Exactly. Well, they never gave our loved ones a second. They never gave it a second thought before they pulled the triggers. They deliberately pointed their rifles, their guns, and killed them. Deliberately, every last one of our loved ones. It doesn't matter if you're a man. It doesn't matter in the case of Corinne Gaines, Miriam Carey, and I'm going to speak some of the women because the women are usually erased. They erased my daughter. They kept that stuff so quiet until we all know which mother said you got to make your case high profile. Pam. Okay, let me say something about that. When it comes to our children and high profile, our babies are the true luminaries. They're the lights. They're the stars. They're the center of our lives, the true luminaries. So high profile, low profile, there should be no distinction. Because each one of us birthed our babies laboring in pain, and we're still in pain, a different type. But do they hurt? They get to go home to their families. So when we start calling for retribution, that's going to make them think twice. Wait a minute. You know, I'm going to let y'all know I'm gacked up, okay? They come up and they step, they're going to get one. I have to fight every day the rage, wanting to go and seek and avenge the murder of my daughter, because I'm not in a place where I want to forgive. I'll never forgive. As a matter of fact, I curse them. I curse their bloodline, because you all better know that they sit around the kitchen table teaching their children that we are worse than animals. Hell, they'll protect a canine dog, and you'll get more time for that before you will murdering our kids. We don't usually get even, quote unquote, even a civil case, let alone criminal. 99%, they're all free. They're every last one. Archie, how many years has that been, dear mother? 27. 20 years for Marion's baby. Okay? The pain never ends. So I'm one pissed off, angry, black but proud, strong and embrace my weakness too, mother that does seek to avenge my daughter's murder. She's got sons coming up, and I'm fighting for them too. So they're not going to see me up there. They see the tears because you all know I'm very vocal on my Facebook page, all right? But I want them to know, no, until we shifted from just asking justice, they've become anesthetized to that word. It means nothing to them. But you see some brothers and sisters walking around armed and protected, saying, look, if you come from, we've had enough. The world erupted when they killed George Floyd. What was different about George Floyd's murder, God rest his soul, than was different than any of our babies? I'll tell you what it was. The ancestors heard, and they said, you know what, we've had enough. We've seen our mothers crying. We've had enough. And our babies, I do imagine them, and I envision our children, each sister and mother. I want to let you all know, this is what keeps me. I imagine India with her soft-spoken self, when I'm feeling so debilitated with the grief, saying, Mama, I'm not by myself. I'm with Alonzo. I'm with Corinne. I'm with Archie. I'm with Miriam. I'm with Amir. I'm with Gary. I'm with Roscoe. I'm with, help me, I want to make sure I don't forget any of the mothers. Terrence, Daquan. I mean, the list can go on and on. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to shorten this. I just want each one of us to shift our thoughts towards retribution, okay? What does that really mean? That's what we need. Because when they see that we're not weak and docile, we're not really talking about civil rights anymore. They never gave it to us to begin with. We're still fighting. We're still fighting. And whenever I end my prayers, I always say, in the name of India Kager. I center her. I center our loved ones. I have an altar space, just so you all know, where I do call out the names of our loved ones. Because they want us to be silenced. They want us to crawl up on our beds in tears and cry. They want us to go away and give up. And unfortunately, each one of us mothers are walking around where it affects our hearts. In the Say Her Name movement, there were 3 mothers who had strokes, Rhonda being one of them. And one of them passed away. All of us carry that in our bodies.
One of them said
She's had
on one day.
Recently.
Yeah.
And that's Tanisha Anderson's mother. So we carry this, we embody this, and they don't care. We have to start saying, you know what, that's it. We're tired. We're tired of being tired. You guys are never going to change. White supremacy is so embedded in this country that they really feel that they have a right to do to us what they have been doing. You know, I'm going to say this, y'all. I plan on fucking them up. Did I just say it? Yes, and I meant it in the name of India Kager. So family, we stand. Let's say this. In the name of our ancestors, justice and retribution for all. Justice and retribution for all. Thank you all. I love you. Oh, and this is my baby. I'm going to put her picture over there. India and her boys. And just so you all know, I drove with April, my sister there, sister girl, 15 plus hours from Pensacola. We literally just got here. So no sleep, but I was determined to be here with the families and stand no matter what it took. And there's one more thing I want to say. Excuse me, y'all. Let me, snap our fingers on that. Every mother in here is a leader. Yes, this is Al Sharpton calling this together, but wait a minute. We don't need one person or 2 people in the front and center to be leaders. We lead for our loved ones. Right. We have the spirit of leadership for our loved ones. We take that narrative. We reframe that narrative. We speak, and we have black joy. Where's April Groggins? I love that. What was the words of that song about heal? Say it again, sweetheart. Yeah. Healing. Healing, healing, healing. We know that we speak that. We need to make it manifest. It comes in different ways. However, I don't expect to be healed. I expect to ascend. And that's different because really healing means it has a connotation that we're over it. We're never going to be over it, but we can ascend higher every day and we can raise ourselves higher, raise the vibration, keep our loved ones front and center, and make sure that retribution is now in our lexicon because that gives us another level of power. It raises it an octave. It's a little different than just saying justice. Not saying that that doesn't mean anything because it does, but they're so used to it. Retribution is going to scare their asses off. It's going to scare them. And they need to be scared. All right, family, love you. Ashayo! In the name of India. All right. Okay.
That's my vocabulary word forever. Retribution.
Retribution.
I'm just looking and it won't be like retribution.
Retribution.
Everybody text that, tweet that, post that. We got a new word. Hashtag it. We can't let them know all our secrets. I want to thank you again for sharing your stories.
Thank you,
Does everybody feel that chill? Like, I'm walking into tomorrow a brand new woman. I can't wait to get on the air at 5:50 in the morning and talk my niece says sugar honey iced tea.
Sugar honey iced tea.
I learned how to cuss without cussing when I got somebody that, well, she can
Honey,
spell
I
now.
cuss and make up new words,
I don't know.
y'all.
But I want to thank y'all
For
again.
real.
A reminder that everybody in this building is here for you.
Thank
so
you.
please make sure, and that's for everybody. For the people that you know, walk out with 2 more email addresses, 2 more Facebook addresses. This does not end today. From my point of view, it always seems like the minute that media, because I got to separate us so often, it don't get the clicks and the views, it goes somewhere. And sometimes, unfortunately, a lot of us go right along with it.
We do.
We want it to stay where we need it to stay for the justice that we are going to get, our retribution that we about to get.
Retribution.
So thank you, ladies, again.
Thank you, Queen.
With that, we're going to bring up our final panel before we have an interpretive dance by Naya. Naya, we're going to do our final panel first and then let you close out our show. And then we'll turn it over to Ms. Ayana. Is that cool? Thank you for bringing your spirit. So with that, may I please have the families of Jeffrey Price, Daquan Young, Marquise Austin, and Jamal Bird.
Oh, thank you. I did sign that petition.
Because that's after the conversation we're about to have, and then with you doing our closing, I think that was good.
To Kristen and over there.
You want your cane, Mama?
Yes, please. Excuse me.
I'm trying to be grown.
I love your hair. Hey, pretty princess. I love your hair.
Good.
Beautiful princesses you all are.
We did. We called them on the last panel.
Okay.
Yes, and they never came up because I asked them
I'm
that.
going to introduce you. So she's
Is the family?
Get out Archie's petition and also
We'll also receive the family of Terrence Sterling.
and April Jafari. This is Dottie Elliott.
I think maybe he just did.
Kristen is one heck of an organizer. I want you to connect with her and Jafari.
I'm good, King.
This is my son, my spirit baby. He's my spirit baby. And this is April. April.
They're all here.
Yeah, she's my sister.
They're all here.
And
We figured the conversation we're going to have and how emotional it is, she would be a great ending before we go to Ayana with the closing. Thank you, everybody, for your patience.
He was in the back of with his
Good evening to everyone.
Let me let her tell you. I'll be right back.
My name is Isaac Sterling. Terrence Sterling was my son, the second of only 2 children that we had. And I wanted to share with you all what me, my wife, and my daughter has gone through in the last 4 years. My son was killed by 2 police officers here in Washington, D.C. at 3rd and M Street. There was a bachelor party that my son had attended over in Adams Morgan. He came to the bachelor party on a motorcycle. And upon leaving the bachelor party, I guess he revved his motorcycle up, or it was said that someone was operating a motorcycle in a not so good way. And the complaint came into the police department, and they gave chase. And they chased him from Adams Morgan to down to 3rd and M Street. And in the process of chasing him, they lost sight of him. So I'm not really sure that my son was the one that was actually the one that was doing what they should not have been doing on a motorcycle, but he was there in the city with a motorcycle. And the 2 police officers, Brian Traynor and Jordan Palmer, chased my son, and after they lost sight of him, they went down to 3rd and M and sat at that corner waiting for him to pull up to the light. My son pulled up to the light, and he stopped. They waited until the light changed and pulled out in front of him, which forced him to unavoidably hit the police car. And they claimed that their lives were threatened. They fired, Brian Traynor fired from a police officer, fired from the passenger side of the police car, hitting my son twice, once in the right neck and in the lower back after he was pinned between the curb and the police car because he had nowhere else to go. And he was trying to avoid hitting the car. Subsequent investigations found that these guys did do what they did. They chased him. There was supervisors that told them to break off the chase. They did not do it. They continued to chase him. The police officer who fired Brian Traynor broke the law by firing from inside of the police car in a seated position. And not only did he fire once, he fired twice. Mr. Palmer was also found guilty of being in part and parcel to this case in the murder of my son. Now, I just gave you a gist of what was happening, but my son was not a thug. He was not one that was riding up and down the streets on the four-wheelers, on the sidewalk and then back on the street. He was riding a legal motorcycle. It was not a trail bike or an off-road vehicle. And they did not have to do what they did because they could have followed him to his house, which he was coming back to my house, which he lived with me. And there is a license plate that they could have taken and issued a ticket. But they chased him and they killed him. And they claimed that their lives were in danger, which was never the case. Through FBI investigations, my son's motorcycle was only traveling at about between 5 and 8 miles per hour when it hit the car. There was no damage to the car. There was no damage to any of the police officers. Subsequent to us finding out, or before we found out that my son was dead, this happened on September 11th, 2016. We found out, that was a Sunday morning, early Sunday morning, we found out while we were in church. My son was killed around 4:30 in the morning. We didn't get notified until 12 o'clock. Okay? No information about what happened, no information about who was involved. I actually called the chief of police, who called me, giving me sympathy, and the mayor who called me giving me sympathy. But I called the police, the chief of police here, and asked him if he could tell me what happened. He said, I don't have the time to do it at that time when I was talking to him, but I subsequently called him and we sat down at a meeting with him on that Monday. Now in the meantime, I'm angry like this lady just said she's angry and all of the rest of you are angry. I wanted to take my 30-06. I wanted to take all of the weapons I could get my hand on and come down here, and I probably would have gotten wasted, but there'd have been some others that went along with me. But for the grace of God and my pastor who walked with me and counseled with me through this entire process, told me, no, that's exactly what they want you to do. This battle is not yours, it's the Lord's. And you have to put it in his hand and allow him to work through the process. Little did I know at the time, there were 2 witnesses that saw what happened. Now, the chief of police is telling one story on Sunday morning. That Monday, 2 witnesses came forth. And I thank God to the day for Channel 5 News. And Mr. Robert Wagner, an investigative reporter that he just recently retired earlier this year. He, doing an investigative report, discovered 2 witnesses who came forth and told a different story than the 2 police officers. The chief of police on Monday morning changed his story. because of the witness testimony. Okay? We met with him on that Monday afternoon, my pastor and I assume because he had himself, his deputy, her deputy, there's about 3 or 4 of them, plus the 2 investigative officers, internal investigators that are sitting there at the table with us. And I think they really expected me to come in and raise hell. But we didn't do that. My word to him, just like I'm telling you now, is I want to know what happened. I want you to do a good, thorough investigation and let the chips fall where they may. If my son was in the wrong, I have to accept that. But if your police officer was in the wrong, I want you to divulge that and let us know what happened. No, we can't give you no information. I said, okay, I will be back. I lawyered up. And most of you know Murphy, Falcon. That law firm is who I went to. These were the same people that handled the Freddie Gray case in Baltimore. And there was a lawyer that was a part of that firm. His name is Jason Downs. Jason and I sat down and we had a discussion about what had happened. And he says, I don't make you any promises, but we will investigate. And he began his investigation. And when we went back again, we were given the videotapes that they told. Y'all were looking at a wrong story on television because that wasn't the true story. When we saw the actual videotapes, we saw what was happening and knew what went wrong. And I told him, we're holding your foot to the fire because you all know these guys broke the law here. They violated no less than 4 ordinances that are on the book for the police department to be able to perform their duties by. They broke them. And we subsequently went on, to make a long story short, because I know y'all been here for a while, you're listening, but we went on to have a meeting with the U.S. Attorney General's office, which turned out to be a total disappointment. Kevin Costner and his crew failed to do their duty. We had, oh, by the way, I forgot, we also had a meeting with the coroner here in this city. And my son's death was declared by the coroner's office a homicide. And we asked her, well, what's your definition of a homicide? And she said, death by another. In this case, death by whom? A police officer. Okay? The U.S. Attorney General's office, with all of this information in their hands, refused to prosecute Brian Traynor or Mr. Jordan Palmer. We subsequently, in the process of filing the lawsuit, we went on to settle the lawsuit because we saw the way things were playing out. They were never intended to prosecute these officers. And the claim that they make all the time is their life is in danger, when it was not. But I'm still holding out hope and trusting in God that we'll be able to put a new affidavit before the U.S. Attorney General's office and prosecute this case the way it should be prosecuted. Because I am not settling for the fact that these guys walked. The only thing they did with the police officers here in D.C. is they fired him. They fired Brian Traynor. Jordan Palmer got a 20-day suspension. But I want to let you know, and I give these people here, Black Lives Matters, y'all don't know, because I never shared it with you unless my daughter did, because I haven't been communicating with you all as much as my daughter has. But when you all were protesting down at 3rd and M Street, because it was not just black people, it went across this country. Now, I'm a former federal employee. I travel all 50 states doing what I used to do for them. And people heard about what you all were doing here I got letters, I got cards of people congratulating and actually supporting what we were doing. And doing it in a positive way, not going out tearing up the city and doing all of the negative stuff. Because I believe that's why some of the lives of some of the kids that died, their families got lost in the mix because of the violence that was going on. And they painted with a broad brush. I didn't know it at the time, but Alton Sterling was a relative of mine who also was shot and killed in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, because that's where I'm originally from. Cousin. God bless you. I hope to meet you and have a word with you before we leave. Amen. Amen. But I want to also say this. The combination of what was happening on the streets of D.C. in protest, and me, primarily me, because my wife, she don't like to talk, y'all, but my son was her heart. My son was my daughter's best friend. And when that happened, it was about to tear my family apart. But I am a godly man who loves my wife and loves my daughter, and I will refuse to allow the devil to have his way and tear us apart. So I took a stand. No press, no public meetings until we are ready and have been able to handle things ourselves internally. Through Christian counseling as well as professional counseling, we are whole, we are one. We are standing together, but that's me. And I will refuse to allow anger to take away from me what God has given me. And that is a sound mind with plenty of strength and a lot of faith that he will do what he said he will do. And I'm a living witness to you through prayer, through being deliberate about challenging the anger. Yes, I get angry every day. The worst part of the day for me is when my son would come home in the evening and we would sit down over a meal or just sitting down sharing about what his day was like and what my day was like, and being able to connect with him. But my son was a person that was a loving, kind person. He would give you the shirt off his back. He'd spent countless days working as a HVAC mechanic and providing for those that didn't have heat, those that did not have air conditioning during the summertime, for those in a nursing home, or as I should say, a senior living center in Leisure World. He wound up being adopted by them, which was primarily a Jewish community. Those folks were ready to come and testify on his behalf if we needed to, and would do so even to the day. We still get cards from them. That is a consolation to us. Now, I had not known or met any of you before tonight, but I've been praying for you. Praying for your strength in God, that God would give you what you need to stay on the battlefield. And one thing I can tell you that I know and I learned and experienced through this process is that if we keep pressure on the streets and we get the lawyers to go in at the round table and hold their foot to the fire, and we can say retribution, but I want accountability. If there were two black men who committed a crime at 3rd and M Street against anybody, they both would have been tried and convicted and guilty of murder. These police officers need to be held responsible when they do wrong and held accountable and tried, convicted, and put behind bars. When we start doing that, we'll see a change. But what we have started now, we can't allow it to go silent. We have to keep it on the front burner. Because that's the only way we're going to get the justice that we really need. That's the only way we're going to get the retribution, if you want to put it that way. But that's the only way these folks are going to be held accountable for what they have done and for what they are doing, and they will continue to do if we do not hold their foot to the fire, politicians included. Every one of them, from the president on down, mayor, city council, police officers, chief of police, we got to hold these people accountable, and then we'll get what is our due. Okay? But that's what I wanted to share with you. My son was a good son, and he was loved by many. I didn't know how many people really had a relationship and a fellowship with my son until he was dead and gone. And it's countless numbers that we still get calls from. And yes, I lost a son, but you know, most of his friends, especially male friends, have become friends of mine. Whereas I didn't only have one that I lost, God has placed many that I can speak into and lead and guide them in their lives. And I'm continuing to do that. My life and how I've lived my life as a, if you will, a spiritual testimony to other men to stay strong, stand by our wives, stand by our children, but at the same time, be out there in the front along with you in the battle. And not allow you, only the women, to go forth. We got to start standing up too. Okay? But we start at home, and then it grows apart. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Denise Price. I'm the mother of Jeffrey Price Jr. Bear with me. I usually don't speak. I'm not a speaker. My brother, Jay Brown, and my adopted brother, Lorenzo Green, usually speak for me. But hearing your stories tonight has given me a little strength and encouragement. Jeffrey was born December 13th, 1995. Jeffrey went on, was a good kid, did things that regular kids do. He was always a smart child growing up. In 2015, he got his certification in HVAC program. He went to Maya Angelou, young adults. He was playing around in front of my high school, so I took him out. He went on to get on the dean's list, which I knew he could do. No criminal background. Jeffrey just had a hobby of riding dirt bikes. Jeffrey was killed in a collision with a police officer on May 4th, 2018. That day has changed my life forever. I actually was coming from, it was a Friday, I was coming from taking my girlfriend to a food pantry. And I looked down there and I said, on Division Avenue, and where this accident happened, I can't get to my home without going on Division Avenue daily. There's no other way I can get to my home. I have to go on Division Avenue to get home. I told my girlfriend, I looked down there and I saw the yellow tape. I said, girl, I'm going around there to see what happened. After I dropped these kids off, I said, because that could be my child, your child, or anybody's child, not knowing at the time it was my child. I go down to Division Avenue and I show my ID to an officer. I remember his name, Officer Fogel. So I said, I'm the mother of Jeff Price. Someone told me he was in an accident. He called somebody on the radio and said, ma'am, I cannot give you that information at this time. I said, okay. He said, I'll have someone call you. I said, okay, this is like 1:30. I go home and I wait
for someone to contact me. So I go up to 6th District, which is right up the street. I live on J Street, so 6th District right down the street, the new one that they put in the school. So I go there, I go up to the front window with my ID again, and I said, I'm trying to find out where my son is. I was told he was in a collision down on Division Avenue. So I give the lady my ID. She said, no one can give you that. No one of authority is here, ma'am, that can give you that information. I said, thank you. She said, I'll have him call. I said, okay. I went back to my car. I said, I told my girlfriend in the car, I said, my son is deceased. She said, don't say that. I said, when you go to a police station and they say they need someone in high authority to give you information, then that's a death. And she said, how do you know that? I said, I did security. It's like when I tell them about CCN numbers. I know. So anyway, long story short, the officer came and the lady from Internal Affairs came to my house. And they said, this is what they told me. I said, can you tell me what hospital my son is? I just want to get to my son. He said, ma'am, your son was in PG Hospital, but I'm sorry to tell you, he didn't make it. That's just how I was informed by the detective that came to my house. And an internal affairs lady, she was like, we're going to do everything that we can to do this and that and whatever. Long story short, I called my family, my ex-husband, we get up to PG Hospital. They say that Jeffrey was in bed 4. And from what I heard, another person got killed on 295 in a similar accident the same day. So a nurse came out and she was talking about how somebody's face was messed up and stuff like that. By trade, I was a mental health case manager, so I know the HIPAA law very well. So I told her, I said, ma'am, you're out here discussing somebody's loved one, and you don't know who is who. So my niece and them got upset about what was happening. So all of a sudden, Jeffrey's no longer in bed 4. Jeffrey's in the morgue. We took too long to get up there. So the part that hurts me was I wasn't there to comfort my baby as he was transitioning. And a week after Jeffrey was in the collision with the police officer, because my family and I questioned it, what they were saying, the gun recovery unit came into my yard unannounced, did not tell me why they were there or nothing else, just searching. And I said, sir, I asked them like 5 times in the video because it's lingering around on social media. I said, can you tell me why you're here? Can you, if you don't have a warrant, can you leave my property? My brother said, can you at least tell us why you're here? He said, no. Now, if it was somebody, such a emergency that they had to come in my yard or do whatever they needed to do for whoever they were looking for, then why didn't you make sure that the children got into safety? I had grandkids out there. I had my great nieces. We were making Jeffrey's funeral arrangements when they decided to do this. So it's been a little hard for us. My attorney, who's in the back right there, he's been an excellent person for me and my family. Not only do I look at him as an attorney, I look at him as family man. He's there with me 100%. Wherever I go, and Mimi and everybody can tell you, Lorenzo, wherever I go, he's right there. Supporting me. Whatever he does, he informs me. or whatever he finds out, he let me know. Okay, I'm gonna go on to jump to the body worn camera that was just released. I was going back and forth for 2 years. They rejected me in August of 2018. They said it was 51 videos and they could not make any clippings off of the video to show me of Jeffrey. So when that emergency bill passed recently, I was going back and forth. I always send emails. I'm gonna have a trail to show when we go to court. It ain't I said, he said, she said. This lady, she called me and I said, yes, I want to see it. And I said, do you have any appointments available? And I let my attorney know next week. She said, yes, I have every day available. I said, okay, can you give me a day and time? She never responded back. My attorney filed an emergency petition. He was actually speaking to the government when they released the tapes, all 3 tapes of the whole high profile cases of Jeffrey, Daquan, and Marquise. So the mayor did not want his emergency to get to that judge and to say that a federal judge had ordered them to be released. So she released them without any of us knowing. That's why they released them so fast. That's not what they're telling me. Okay. Now, prior to that, Jeffrey, I did say Jeffrey was not supposed to be driving that dirt bike. He should have been given a traffic citation, a minor one, and it wasn't a death penalty for him getting killed like that. Now, the accident was ruled preventable. So what does that mean? The accident could have been prevented if the police didn't run a stop sign. He ran the stop sign and intentionally blocked my baby so my baby could hit that truck. It's called barricade, and they did it before. Why? Okay, if, like they say in the report, if 2 officers was following him, how can I follow somebody but at 70 miles, at approximately 70 miles per hour? You cannot follow nobody at 70 miles per hour. Why did you have to come, run a stop sign and block them in if they was behind her? His punishment for the preventable collision was a 6-day suspension, and he only served 1 day. So my son's life was only worth 1 day of suspension. But I'm not going to speak on it too much because it's still in court. And like I say, no amount of money is going to bring my son back. But I plan to get justice for them coming in my yard and for them what happened to Jeffrey. And I wish each and every one of you justice. And I want to especially thank Pamela Brooks because our sons were murdered similar, and she's been a good support system. Some days it feels like, I try to do stuff like, me being a mental health case manager, I never thought I would need therapy from a therapist. So I'm getting my therapy from my therapist. I've been off work since 2017 when I had my first knee replacement, and it's just hard for me. I was determined to get down here, but some days I plan like to go places or meet with other mothers, and I just don't have the strength right now. You know, right now to me it just seems like it's yesterday, and I'm not. I want to work with you all, and I'm trying to build up more strength, but some days it's just like I can't do anything. So it's very difficult. It's still very new to me, and it's very difficult for me to get into things. But I'm trying, and I want to thank Nene and April and all of you all for strength, because it's good to know that you're not alone in incidents like this. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Catherine Young. My son's name was Daquan Young, and he was murdered. May the 9th, 2018. All I can tell you is what people told me. I don't know as much information as Denise knows about her son, because they haven't gave us any answers. I seen the video camera that they so-called these. They didn't show y'all the same thing that they showed me. I seen my son trying to get away from the police officer. They said that my son shot at the police officer, but my son was running away from the police officer. He was killed in Brentwood. So the story was that they said my son approached the police officer. He asked the police officer, you know, let me back up, I'm sorry. I'm nervous. The police officer, he was an off-duty police officer. He said that he was on his way to a cookout in Montana. The police officer worked out of 7D, so I don't know why he was over at 5D. And he's saying he was at a cookout over there on Montana Avenue. And everyone over there said they didn't know him. And he never identified himself to my son. So my son, the person that he is, he likes to help, or he liked to help people. So he went over, I guess he went over to say, you know, can I help you? You know, is there anything I can help you with? You know, because you look like you lost, because they said the guy was walking up and down the street. I'm so mad.
Challenge the anger.
Because my son had a daughter, so, and he was in his daughter's life. I always told my son, you gotta be in your daughter's life, because his father wasn't in his life. And it's very important that you be in your child's life, because a daughter needs a father. I miss the days that my son used to call me with his crazy questions. He used to call me every Monday to see how I was doing. And I would always say, boy, stop calling me at work. I got stuff to do. I ain't got time to be talking to you. I got work to do. You call me asking me what I have to do when I'm doing, I'm working. Leave me alone. And now I just think about it like, I wish I would have never told him to leave me alone, because I miss my son.
They do.
So my son was shot 5 times, and 3 of them was in his back, 2 of them was in his knees, and I know that from the autopsy report. But when I sat down at the table and watched the video of what happened to my son was trying to get away, and you couldn't see what was going on. It started one part at the rec center, then my son ended up at the other end of the rec center, and I'm like, what's really going on? And I just don't know what happened to my son. I just want answers, and I haven't gotten my answers yet. The mayor or the chief of police never called me and gave me condolence about my son. And then I was harassed when I went to the hospital because I wanted to see my son when he was killed. The police officer harassed us and asking us all kinds of questions about what was my son doing up at the recreation center when he lives around there. And it's just terrible. I just feel bad. I'm sorry.
My name is Roxanne Blanchard Johnson. My son's name was Jamal Quasi Bird. Excuse me. He was born August the 26th, 1984. Yesterday would have been his 36th birthday. My nightmare started October 1st, 3 in the morning, when I was called by Central Cell Block and interrogated and asked what my son looked like. At 3 o'clock in the morning, I get 20 questions, and I sit up in the bed, and I'm starting to worry, who is this calling me? What do you want? Why are you asking about my son? Well, we need to call you back. Click. Now I'm up in the bed, and I'm starting to, all kinds of things are going through my mind. 10 minutes later, I get a second phone call. Does your son have any distinguishable tattoos? More interrogation at 3 o'clock in the morning. What is going on? What's going on? Why are you asking me about my son? We just want to make sure, so we'll call you back. About 5 minutes later, I get another phone call from a chaplain who proceeds to tell me that my son is deceased. And now, I want to know, what have y'all done to my child? What did y'all do? How did he end up dead in Central Cell Block? He left my house on September the 29th to go to DC to sign up for a job training program, and now you're telling me he's dead over the phone? Who does that? So that's 3 o'clock in the morning, and for the last 6 months or so, I wake up every day at 3 o'clock in the morning. I cannot go back to sleep because I've been traumatized, because people call me that murdered my son at 3 o'clock in the morning to tell me. Okay. So the next day, I get a phone call from the medical examiners. And I don't want them touching my child. I don't want them touching him because they will give me no answers. I want to see his body before y'all do anything. Oh, well, you can't come and see him. We can send you a picture on the cell. I said, no, that's not going to work for me. I need to see my child because I don't know what y'all did to him. And y'all not giving me no answers. Well, if you want, you can have him moved to a funeral home, blah, blah, blah. Now you compounded my trauma. But we got to move to a funeral home because I need to see my child. So it took 3 days to get him to Stewart Funeral Home. I looked at his body. My son, beautiful, handsome man. He mattered to me. He might not have mattered to them, but he mattered to me. It's something very dark about having to pick out a casket for your child. I'm glad this sister reminded us that we have light in life, because for the last 9 months, I've been feeling very dark in here, right in here. Like somebody took my heart out and stomped it on the ground. I got told on no work. They proceeded to tell me that my son, who was arrested by a matter of fact, for suspicion of selling marijuana, a offense that most people get a citation, $50 citation, he ends up arrested and dead. They tell me at 11 o'clock that night, they went to check on him and he was unresponsive. They ruled his death an accidental suicide. I can't get no information because of qualified immunity. I can't get any more information because of what they call qualified immunity. What it is it qualifies them to kill whoever they want to kill for whatever reason, and they make it up as they go along. This has to stop. Our ancestors are screaming from the grave. Their blood is demanding retribution. Let me tell you a little bit about my handsome, beautiful son. He was a quiet child. I mean, he was the kind of kid, when he went ready to go to sleep, he would just go to sleep. Beautiful 2-year-old, go to sleep, right? I used to have to go find him and go outside and play. He liked to go to the pool, he liked to swim, the beach, all of that, till he would turn the color of a plum. I had to go get him out to come in the house, because he liked to play all the time. He was very playful, even when he was an adult. He played. He said the best thing that ever happened to him was having his daughter and his son right here. That was he said, Mom is nothing better than being a father. And he was a father. He took care of his children. He took care of his children. The Saturday before he transitioned, we spent almost all day together. He started telling me all the favorite foods that he liked that I cooked. So he liked all the food I cooked. He had interesting taste. He would put ketchup on cornbread. But he was also a kind person. He would give you literally the sneakers off his feet. I mean, he had friends who got into different things and ended up homeless. Mom, they homeless. I'm gonna take them a pair of my sneakers and a couple of shirts. But most people ain't partying with their sneakers. Tom, he's not. But he would do that. But he was quiet, but then he was profound. Like, all of a sudden he'd say something that'd be like so profound. I was like, wow. Because he was very observant. Quiet people see things and they observe. He was very protective of me, and I was very protective of him. That's the only son God gave me. That was the only son that God gave me. And what I realized is this: if you get retribution for your sister, then I get retribution for my son. If you get retribution for your son, then I get retribution for my son. You get that? If you get retribution for your son, I get retribution for mine. Because guess what? We all in this together. We all are in this together. So some days that's the only day to keep me going. Because like you said, you angry? That's mild. I'm enraged every day. I have to deal with microaggression every day. I feel like telling people, kiss my every day. Every day. But I know that it's the spirit that lives in me that keeps me from losing it. I can't watch none of that stuff on TV. I can't watch George. I can't watch them chase Aubrey like he was an animal. I can't watch it. I just can't, because it's trauma inducing, and I refuse to keep putting myself in that trauma wheel. I can't do it. But I did write a little something before I leave this evening. But I just feel like everybody's kind of saved this theme, but I just want to give you a few words. And we're for Alabama together as family, so hey, I'm your new family member. My hands are up because I cannot breathe. A heart's cry, verbal, non-verbal. Your evil, you believe, ends in my surrender. Submission comes before salvation. A war cry invoking my divine power within. the ability to survive the unspeakable and conquer the impossible. The natural has grown tired. I stay tired of the injustice, 3/5 of a person, enslavement, colonization, systematic nullification, marginalization, discounted and dismissed. We are tired. Non-immigrant by definition, stowaway cargo, packed into the hull of the ship, been trying to free ourselves from these dungeons ever since. From karma, there is no escape. Be grateful that my ancestors are not requiring revenge, but just justice and reparations. My hands are up because I cannot breathe. As I surrender to the divine power, activated divine power within. Thank you for listening to me.
We have one more. We have one more.
Good evening, everyone. My handsome baby was Marquise Austin. On June 10th, 2018, I dropped my granddaughter, Marquise's daughter, off to him. I had her for the weekend. And so when Marquise came outside to get Lyric, his daughter, from me, I said, Marquise, lean your head in the car right here because I need to get a picture of the three of us. I don't have a picture of the three of us. And so he was like, Mom, there you go again with the pictures. We took the picture, and never would I have imagined that that would have been my last time physically seeing my son. On that Tuesday, June 12, 2018, I got a call from Marquise's co-parent. I knew something wasn't right. She was panting in the phone. She said, Marquise has been shot. I said, because I'm a firm believer in faith, in the universe, I said, what hospital we going to? She said, we're not going to the hospital. He's gone. So I had a friend that's on the police department, and he said, do you want to know do you want to know what happened with Marquise? I said, what? He says, Marquise was shot by the police. I said, what? So, of course, it aired on the television that night. My oldest son went to the scene, gave MPD all of my information. The next day, they didn't come to my home till about 3 o'clock p.m. Marquise had been shot about 7 o'clock p.m. the day before. When they came to my home, they said, we're here in regards to an incident that occurred on yesterday. Then they said, they gave me a Google printout. And said, this is the medical examiner's office. You can call here and see if your son is here, and then they can give you the next steps.
My God.
That's the only communication MPD gave me for, I guess I want to say the first 18 months. The only reason I got some information after 18 months because I advocated like hell. I advocated like hell. I went to every city council meeting that I could go to. I was in their face asking for meetings. Because the first process in this, they said, you need to request to see the body cam footage. So we did that. And the first response we got, they said, Marquise needs to request the body cam footage.
I remember that.
Then the next response they said is, oh, you're his mother. So they started giving pushback about that. so I beat my goddamn feet advocating for them laws and to be changed, for the amendment of the body cam legislation in DC. They changed it 2018 so that parents of adult children could see body cam. Of course, I'm still advocating in the midst of all of that process. Please publicly release the body cam so I can understand exactly what happened. Because guess what? I only knew what the community said. How disheartening they have treated me, not even like a human being. And so we requested a meeting with Attorney General Carl Racine. And I told him, if you had a child and you were in my case, would you want to know what happened to your child? That's only rightfully so. So he said, I'll ask the mayor. Within a week, we got a call to say the mayor will be releasing the body cam footage. But guess what, y'all? She said it wouldn't be publicly released. She only wanted to release it to my family. I said, okay. The night before we were due to go to see the body cam footage, they called the attorney and said, oh, Miss Austin, you can only bring 3 people. I know we approved the previous people, but no, we're gonna limit you to 3 people. We went to see the body cam. When I viewed that body cam, it damn sure did not match what the chief of police stated, which was my son shot at the police. That's what I was looking for. I didn't see that. So I continue to advocate to say, release what you showed me, release that. Because if the world sees that, they gonna see that Marquise didn't shoot at the police. So then, they still gave me pushback. Wouldn't release the body cam. So I kept advocating for the legislation. Finally, June 10th, it was, they did an emergency legislation vote. And so they approved for officers' names to be released and body cam footage within 72 hours to be released. But guess what? After that was approved, MPD and the mayor, they released a heavily edited footage of the killing of my son. Still didn't release the raw footage of what happened. Even when they released the footage, I think it didn't even have any volume. I didn't watch it, but from what I heard, it didn't have any volume. So I am still advocating to say, publicly release the unredacted footage of the killing of Marquise Austin. Thank you, Black Lives Matter. Because when I couldn't stand, and when I didn't feel like being on the front line, you all stood in my place, you all stood in the gap. And I am so ever grateful. I am so grateful. So yet we stand. Yet we stand. I am speaking tomorrow at the march. And I'm going to do an interview with CNN at 9 o'clock. And I swear to God, I'm going to speak my baby's truth.
That's right.
I'm not going to speak nothing that nobody told me to speak. I'm not speaking to no police that somebody else told me to speak to. I'm going to speak my baby's truth. For God I live and for God I die. Thank you.
I am just amazed by your spirit, your energy, your will to push on. Know that in those moments that y'all can't stand, I want you to take a good look around the room and to remind yourself that each person sitting in here connected to about another 5, 10, 15, 20 that will come and stand too. And for all of those in the building, please pour into Black Lives Matter DC. Yes. When I tell you, it is the most transparent, consistently fighting for the stories that are buried. And these stories have been buried for a reason. We're not sitting in here by chance. We're not fighting because we ain't got nothing better to do. These are the stories. Who was the young lady that said, your babies will tell the story and light the way? These are the stories that will push changing that law enforcement Bill of Rights, that qualified immunity. These are the stories. You want to share something? A long time ago, I stopped sharing what footage was given to me and started seeking the footage that I couldn't find. I wanted the sound bites from the people that didn't speak. I don't need Chief Newsom or Mayor Bowser to tell me anything. They can't tell me nothing. The biggest question me and Joe get is, why are they never on your show? I know exactly why they're not on my show. I don't do talking points. I want to know. Y'all really want to see something different? I challenge everyone in this room to do something different tomorrow. Yes. You can tag Beyonce and say, when is Black is King 2 coming out? Tag Mayor Bowser and be like, what about? Tomorrow when we march with our signs, you can have Brianna, you can have George, you can have Tamar. You done just went through almost 20 damn stories of right here in DC. So when we say we have work to do, it's not something to say because it's cute and it look good with a hashtag and a t-shirt. This is the work. Sharing these stories is the work. Showing up for these families, not tomorrow, months from now, next year, 5 years from now, and asking, how can I help you, is the work. I want to thank all of y'all for being here. I know this was longer than we thought, but we know how we get down when we fellowshipping in real life. So I think Lorenzo, is Naya still performing? Can we? Now, y'all just met me, but the one thing I do is pray. I don't mean to offend anyone. I believe we all have a God, and in this moment, I'm going to ask, if you're close enough and they don't mind, touch the hem of a garment, somebody next to you, then close your eyes. London, get to it. Close your eyes and touch that girl. Watch you. Father God, you said that when more than one comes in your name and prayers go up, the blessings rain in an amount that we're not even ready for. In this room right now, there are people that are asking you to just touch a door, touch a phone, touch a text, touch a hashtag. But we are all walking testimonies of exactly how your power works and how you wield it. We're not asking for no freebies. We are asking that you continue to guide us, that we use our superpowers for good, and we walk in our purpose continuously. No matter the storm, no matter the weather, no matter the season, we stay focused on if you can bring us to it, we are already through it. We give thanks in this moment for every roadblock that you've pushed away, every door that you've opened, every window you've unlocked and got people scratching their heads for. We also give thanks for the things that you are working on in our behalf that we don't even know about yet. Them blessings on the horizon. I just ask that you wrap everyone in you, dip them in your grace and love, and as we walk through this door into our next seconds, our minutes, our hours, our days, weeks, months, and years, that we keep focused on you, because it is through you that we will push through in everything that we have asked in this evening, because every time somebody spoke, it was a prayer coming up to your ears, that you answer them in your time and your will and continue to guide our way. We give thanks, we love you. Amen. My last came up.
We're just Black Lives Matter mural in Brooklyn.
Okay,
Sure.
1 second. So